Alrighty. We are live. What is up? What is up? What is up? Good to see everybody here. Been about a week, so my apologies. We're alive, folks. Okay, we're alive. This light is off in the back. Forgot to turn it on. Should I just? I don't know what color it's gonna be. I think I could do it from my phone. One sec. There we go. All right. Good to see you guys. What's up? What's up? What's up? Oops, this is moving. Yeah, so I apologize for the long break. As you guys know, I put a YouTube post up. I hope it posted. I never checked. Sometimes when I post it from my phone, it doesn't go up. I think it should be up. Let me make sure you guys were able to see that. Posts. Yeah, so I put a YouTube post up. Man, I came down with the same exact symptoms that I had from 2 weeks ago, where my stomach was killing me, and I was suffering, to say the least, okay? It was a pretty brutal weekend, this previous weekend, and I'm back to life. Around Monday, I started feeling better, but you know, I've been doing testing and stuff to make sure everything is good. So far, so good. Nothing has come back positive. Nothing concerning has come back positive. So that's on the bright side, as well as the fact that my gut and my bowels, right, my digestive tract, or my gut health and my digestive health, to say the least, without getting into gross details, has been functional. I've been feeling good. So I'm all right. I know maybe some of you are probably worried because I said, hey guys, I'm not feeling good on Monday, so I won't be live. I think I said that on Sunday or Monday, and it's now Thursday. But I was going to go live yesterday. It was just that my brother had went live for the whole of the night until after hours. He started pretty early, so I wasn't able to really fit in. But it's fine anyways, because what I have to talk about is probably not going to be as interesting as what he was talking about yesterday. Obviously, he starts his streams with all the red pill stuff, and honestly, there just really hasn't been much going on in the news. The biggest stories are the economic D-Day, Scott Bessent's address to the United States with respect to what his plan is in Iran and how he's going to outcast Iran. Matter of fact, the operation is called Operation Epic Outcast. And so now the United States is trying to economically isolate Iran. And this is, again, another desperate attempt to try and get Iran to play ball with us. As we all know, Iran, for the better part of the last 4 months, since we've brokered some sort of vague ceasefire, has not been wanting to play ball with us. And as time has progressed, they've been less and less willing to play ball with us because we keep encroaching upon our promises and really turning around and stabbing them in the back, either us or Israel. As you know, Israel is loosely involved in this war. However, their involvement has been very loose recently. Interestingly, that is not a surprise, and that comes after a statement from their financial minister last month where he said, we're not going to get involved in the U.S.-Iran war because the United States is doing all the work for us. That's effectively what he said at some sort of hearing in Israel. So you have that as well. But yeah, we'll talk about that. The U.S.'s final desperate attempt to weaken the Iranians, and newsflash, spoiler alert, it's probably not going to work. And look, this is something I already covered, but there's greater detail as to what the plan looks like, I suppose, as Scott Bessent has gave some details, although he was also very vague. And China plays a big role in this because China buys 90% of Iran's oil, anywhere from 80 to 90% estimates have it. And so if you are going to choke Iran out of the global economy and you're going to pressure any country to stop doing trade with Iran, yeah, the UAE may be significant, and then I think the others after that in order would be Iraq, it's the UAE, Turkey, and then India. Sure, that's all cool, but you've got to address China. And interestingly enough, I don't believe in the 40-minute address Scott Bessent had, he mentioned China at all. And so it's kind of weird to see that the United States is trying to choke Iran's economy without involving China, because you can't have one without the other. If you are going to try and outcast Iran from the global community, you have to put sanctions on Chinese shippers or anything related to China, their banks, anything else like that, where they deal with the U.S. currency. Obviously not in the export of the oil or the import of the oil, because that's in yuan. But you've got to do something to China. And I don't think we're willing to do that, because the last time we got into a trade war with China, we kind of blinked. And we pulled out of it because, of course, China is responsible for a lot of our resources as well. that we take from them, responsible for military infrastructure, military logistical infrastructure, windmill turbines, EVs, etc. So, and there's a couple other things, but we'll get into it. And then what was the other thing that I wanted to go over? How am I forgetting that? It's also the trade war between the United States and Canada. And look, this is all happening at the same time. The United States is going into this economic war with the world, it seems. And that's because the midterms are around the corner. Trump has to save face in some way and make it look like the U.S. economy has power and leverage over everybody else, in which we do, especially Canada. But there's a lot of underlying factors and or issues that exist within the Canadian populace, the political appetite and political motivation in Canada, and their new Prime Minister, Dave Carney, who is under a lot of political pressure to not cave and capitulate and make concessions to what Trump may demand for his 50% tariffs that he is demanding upon Canada, I think at some point in September. And there were supposed to be negotiations, but it's getting pushed back. So we'll talk about that as well. I have a video of these two economists going at it, talking about it, so I think that'll be interesting to react to. But yeah, and then I have some other tweets here that we could take a look at. Also, Hassan Piker is something that I wanted to cover. We'll talk about that. We'll do the Hassan Piker thing a little bit earlier in the stream because the trade war and the whole sanctions thing is quite boring. And there's really nothing that has happened yet that's significant. And we have tomorrow or the weekend to cover that, so it's fine. We kind of got to milk the news here a little bit. But it's good to see all of you. Good to see all of you. I seriously was battling demons last weekend, though. So we're good. We're good now. Let's see. I had some super chats, so I'll read these very quickly before we actually get started. But yeah, been all right. I've been working this week. Like I'm not totally dead. I've been back. I've been back in the gym, and honestly, making some gains back. I lost a little bit of gains. I lost a little bit of muscle. I think I did. I don't know. Maybe it's mental, but with the issue with my stomach that I dealt with about 2 weeks ago, and then this weekend, all the accumulated stomach problems, it's just necessary. It's just what follows. You're going to end up losing a little bit of muscle, or maybe it was just water weight. I don't know, but I've been back to eating, holding food, so everything is good. Thank God. So we're good there. But yeah, and the reason why I'm explaining this to you guys is one, because I'm talking to you guys, but two, it's very hard to talk and remember things, and when your gut is not functioning, your brain is not functioning. When your stomach is and my stomach wasn't even in immense pain, but it's imperative that you've got somewhat of a functioning gut when you go live. I've noticed that when my stomach is upset and I try and think and talk, your brain is moving. Your brain is really working when you're streaming because you're effectively multitasking. You're looking at the chat. You're remembering what you want to say. You're making sure you look good. You're paying attention to the view count and the stream health. You're reading something on the screen and everything else. And the lights are in your face. Not to make it seem like it's hard. It's not. I mean, it's a little hard, but it's not like I'm suffering. I'm fine. But I'm telling you all of this to say, when you have stomach issues coinciding with that, it's it just doesn't work. And I don't want to come on here and have a shitty stream and be low energy and give you guys something you don't deserve. So I want to make sure I always come on here with everything in order on my P's and Q's, everything ready to go, sharp, ready, diligent. So that's why I took a little bit of a break, or, I was forced to take a break, whether I liked it or not. But yeah, we're back. How's everybody doing? I hope you guys are good. I hope it's been a good week. I'm not even kidding, though, when I tell you nothing has happened since I've gone live, so you really haven't missed much. Just more kookery and mass psychosis with the Lindsay Clancy situation. I have a tweet here that I wanted to read before we actually read this New York Times article about Trump's economic attack on Iran. And it's just the cope and the defense. It's endless. And it's coming from TikTok. It's coming from X. It's coming from everywhere. And, I have a very specific, vivid memory on stream. 3 or 4 months ago, I was reacting to, I think, James Fishback on Fresh and Fit podcast. And Walter, or Fresh, had said something along the lines of men and women are at war. And I was like, no, men and women aren't at war. It's just a matter of understanding. As long as you understand women as a man, you understand how to move with them, move around them, then you're fine. honestly, bro, I might have to take that statement back. Men and women might be at war. After this whole Lindsay Clancy thing, we're living in scary times. We are living in scary times. I mean, this lady, I'm reading more about the case now, okay? Because I have no choice, because it's all over. Like I said, I'm not a true crime junkie. I'm not really into, like, you know, people murdering their kids. I don't like to read that kind of stuff. I'm like going to read about sanctions and tariffs and war and politics. That's more of my speed. I'm not really paying attention to these little stories that come out of these towns. They're not little stories. They're significant, right? It's a woman killing her own kids. That's grotesque. That's evil. That's demonic. That's reprehensible. However, I don't really read about those things, but I've had no choice but to kind of pay attention to the Lindsay Clancy trial. And so, like, I'm understanding new details. And as I'm understanding new details, the defense of her innocent, or the pull for her innocence, just becomes more and more asinine. You know, so she chokes them with, and I'm sorry if this is explicit, but, like, you know, chokes them with exercise bands. These are kids. These are babies. These are literally, I believe, toddlers. You know, small kids. Chokes them with exercise bands, and then jumps out of a window, and now she's paralyzed, I believe, from the waist down. Sent her husband on some errands while she did it. So it was pre-planned. It was premeditated. And somehow people on TikTok, all the girly pops on TikTok are still trying to say that the husband killed the kids. And it's like, imagine if the roles were reversed. Allow me to just offer you some perspective, okay? Allow me to introduce a thought experiment. Imagine a man did something like this, or a man did something worse. A man, you know, I have to be careful with YouTube, raped a bunch of women, or, you know, did something of the sort, something disgusting, something worth a death penalty, for what we know to be worth a death penalty. I think that is worth a death penalty. Imagine he went on a spree, or he did it to his own kids, God forbid. And men went around in a storm on social media. Men locked hands and stood outside the courthouse where this person, this evil, vile person, was being prosecuted, and said, he's innocent, he's mentally ill. Could you ever imagine a thing like that? Could you imagine what the response would be? And by the way, I'm not concerned about something like that, because I know that would never happen. Why? Because I myself and all the other men know, if a guy goes out and does something violent, abhorrent, we would never take the time to try and defend him, even if there was some plausible defense. So that's the issue with the Lindsay Clancy situation is, yes, you can argue she was medicated. She had a predisposition to psychosis and the medication didn't help and all of these things. Sure, fine. But why can't you recognize that while simultaneously recognizing she doesn't need to go to a psych ward? She needs to be in prison. She needs to be in prison. Yeah, maybe the circumstances weren't the best. This is a mother that just choked her children. I mean, if we want to say this is a mental health crisis, we can run around and say anything is mental health. There actually is a threshold. I think there's a limit to that. I think all bets are off when people go that far. And God forbid, if a man did the same thing, men run around say the same thing, and men run around trying to make the same defense. Could you imagine what women would say? Could you imagine how women would react? Well, they would feel unsafe. Well, you know what? That's how I'm starting to feel around women, actually. I'm starting to feel unsafe. You know, with all these girls walking around going, Lindsay Clancy is innocent. She just had too many drugs. She had a drug cocktail. You know what? Now I fucking feel unsafe. Now I don't feel safe around women. How about that? Let's play the reverse game here. Because if men went around trying to defend some mass killer or some mass rapist, a guy who went on a spree of doing the most violent, heinous crimes, and we said, but he had too much medication, we would be ostracized and alienated from society as a result of that defense. So women are doing it now. Hey, I don't feel safe around these girls. Hey, I mean, if you'll go out and choke your own children, you know, there's no limit to what you would do. So I think that shit's hilarious. Yo, look at this tweet. I'll read chats in a moment. Look at this tweet. Where is it? I just had to favorite this because this was just unbelievable. She says here, let's move this down. I don't even know who this is on X. Honestly, I should just crop the name out. She deserves no clout, but it's fine. So this came across my timeline. She says, if you dumped your girlfriend or fiance or divorcing, okay, can't type. If you dumped your girlfriend or fiance or are divorcing your wife because she supports Lindsay Clancy, then be sure of one thing. She said, be sure one thing. Okay. She's already an idiot, retarded. She can't type. Can't read, can't type, illiterate, no comprehension. Then be sure of one thing. You are the fool. Okay. Letting outside views and opinions dictate to you how to view your partner is the peak of weak, my friend. Wow, this is really, she definitely didn't go to school. If you did not have conversation with her first to understand exactly she supports, exactly what exactly she supports and relates to, then congratulations, you got duped and played. Men need to know how to communicate and understand their partners without other men telling them what to think and do. So y'all just messed up a lot of relationship. A lot of relationship. No S at the end. It's okay. But they were doomed anyways, right? Because who the hell listens to online influencers about what they should do in/with their relationship? And it's just, I'm hoping that like English is not her first language. But anyways, can you believe it? And it's endless. This got 500,000 views. Thank God it didn't get too many likes, only 286 likes. So really bad ratio there. But it's like everywhere, you know, I'm not making it up. She says, if you dumped your girlfriend or fiance or you're divorcing your wife because she supports Lindsay Clancy, then be sure of one thing, you are the fool. No, you're making a great decision. I'm sorry. If I'm sat down with my wife and we talk about the Lindsay Clancy situation and she says, ultimate litmus test. And honestly, the bar is on the fucking floor. The bar is in hell. The bar is in hell. All I want from my wife, all I want from my girlfriend is to say, yeah, she should be charged with murder. Yeah, maybe she was crazy. Maybe crazy people need to go to jail anyways. She killed her own kids. That's all I need my wife to say. I don't need my wife to go hard on it, be an activist on it. But if I present this case to my wife, somebody who's taking care of my children, and she tries to, even in the vaguest, slightest way, make a defense for Lindsay Clancy, goodbye. Running out the door with the kids. And it's all over TikTok. These girls are taking videos with their babies. Their babies are in their arms. They're cradling their children, their babies. Like they're not even kids yet. They're babies. And over the video is a caption that says, same, Lindsay Clancy, same. Can somebody call CPS? Can somebody call the police on these crazy women? What in the world? And this is normalized, and they're not attacked for it. So, look, I'm not for the whole red pill rage, red pill war thing, but men do need to be a little bit more adamant in reprimanding this kind of behavior. Men need to be a little bit more cognizant of this stuff. Don't brush this off. Don't brush this off. And honestly, if any girl in my family feels differently, that's a problem. But if it's my wife, yeah, you're gone. Because look, if you're, or if you're a girl I know, right? Whatever, because at the end of the day, like you're not going to be taking care of my kids, whatever. You can go be a crazy bitch over there. But if you're my wife, yeah, that's actually like a threat to my kids' safety if you're defending this woman. So could you just imagine if the roles were reversed? It's so crazy. And so a little bit on the case. You know, I have some clips here queued up for the case. Today, the jurors were excused until tomorrow after several hours of deliberations, but we'll see what comes of the trial. But let me read some chats first, and then we'll look at some of the... I think I had like one update on the case. Let me see. Because there is a lot to talk about. Yeah, I had something here. But let's see. Taliban jokes are really funny. Okay. Leandro says, welcome back, Ryad. Glad to have you back, brother. Congrats on your father's retirement. I appreciate that. Thank you so much, my friend. Yeah, my dad retired last weekend. Bro's about to be bored. Bro is about to be bored. Nah, he's actually very occupied. He's always working on something. He's got a lot of other things going on. So, had hair in my mouth. Sorry. So, he was wondering, like, maybe I don't know if he wants me to say. He was, not that he regretted his decision at all, but he was like, damn, you know, my father's a very hard worker. My father knows nothing but work. My father knows nothing but, you know, providing for the family, being the masculine figure, being the leader, whatever. Of course, like any other dad, especially a foreign-born one. But, you know, it's about time to lay up the jersey. Put the jersey in the, what do they call it? Hang the jersey up is, I think, the saying. You know, hang the jersey up. It's over, you know. He's at the age of retirement. He's worked his entire life. You know, my father broke his leg being a cab driver in, I think, the 90s in Brooklyn. And he refused to take assistance from the government and continue to be a cab driver and do work with the crutches next to him and a broken leg. His leg almost got amputated. You know, this is somebody that has a great level of pride. So for him, he's always got to be doing something. And by the way, I couldn't be any more proud of him or proud to call him my dad because of that habit of his. But, you know, I told him, hey, maybe time to start a passion project, time to start doing something else. But he's got other things he works on. I won't mention that on stream, but he's got other things that he's occupied with. So he's always busy. You know, I always call my dad, he's doing something. If he's not watching football or baseball, he's doing something. Because he does watch football, baseball, basketball, soccer. He watches all sports. He enjoys all sports. But if he's not doing that, he's doing something. And it's like, bro, can you just chill? But honestly, I prefer it that way because it's anti-aging. Even my mom now. Like, if I see my mom cutting the grass, I'll be like, you know what? Good. You know, there was a time where I would see my mom cutting the grass and I'd be like, I'll take the lawnmower, get out of here. Let me do it. I'm the young man. I'm strong. I got it. Now it's like, you know, as my parents are getting up there in age, I'm looking at them like, you know what? Maybe you can carry that lumber. Maybe you can cut the grass. Not even being a dick. I'm just being serious because they have to be physically active. They're not going to the gym. So, hey, yeah, maybe go cut the grass. That's good. Or whatever else they're doing that is physically laborious. But, you know, I'll say this. When your parents get older, it's a little sad, you know. I don't ever say this to them. I hope they're not watching, but they're probably watching. I'm going to get a text from my mom in a second. You know, you see your parents age. Once you get to 21, 23, I'm 24 now. I'm going to be 25 very soon. You know, I've been around long enough at this point. I know I'm still young, but I've been around long enough to be able to, you know, really see tangible differences in my parents. Not in their cognitive ability, thank God, but, you know, slowly they slow down like anybody else. Like humans, we slow down. We hit a peak and then it's only downwards from there. How steep that is gravely dependent on how well you take care of yourself, but you will be on a downward trajectory in terms of health and you will slowly deteriorate after maybe the age of 40, 50. Some people sooner, some people right around there. And so, you know, I'm watching my parents age, and retirement is one of the biggest signs that you're in that latter half of your life. He's in that third quarter of his life. So it's a little sad, but not in a depressing way. It's the way the cookie crumbles. But I'm happy to see it for him. I'm happy to see it. But hopefully you guys can kind of relate to that. You know, you watch your parents age. If your guys' parents are still with you, if you're lucky enough to still have your parents, watching them age can be a little sad. So, you know, I try to kick it with them whenever I can and hang out and, you know, just enjoy their company. Because you see it, you know. You see a new gray hair or, you know, you just see... I hope they're not watching, like, wrinkles on their face. You know, you see them slowing down a little bit. But thank God my parents are still both pretty physically active and healthy. So, yeah, there's that. Let's see. Some more chats here. John says, saw more Clanies and thought if Epstein was a woman, these dumb feminists would call that nigga iconic. The Taliban's onto something with their rules. Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Yeah, that's true, by the way. I saw somebody tweet that. If Epstein was I'm saying it now. After the Lindsay Clancy trial, there's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. This is proof. If Epstein was a woman, women would get behind him and defend him. Or get behind her and defend her. If we had a Jeffrey Epsteiniana, if we had some sort of female version of a Jeffrey Epstein, you know, some sex trafficking, foreign agent who's got billions of dollars in the bank, worth billions of dollars, I believe his net worth was $500,000, but it's probably $1 billion just given the fact of his network and who he knew. You know, this multi-billionaire foreign agent, whatever, sex trafficking, pedophile, whatever you want to call him. Had that been a woman, woman would have gotten behind and defended him or her. So it's just unbelievable. It's just crazy. I am in a little bit of shock, and we are living in hell. I tweeted that. We are living in hell from seeing all these women defend this sick, vile, demonic excuse of a human. You choke your fucking kids. Tell that to the women who have miscarriages. Tell that to the women that have lost their children. Tell that to the women who have had to see their children die from cancer and other diseases. You know, that's not the natural cycle of life. Not to sound blasphemous, because what God wills is what God wills, but typically that's not the way things go. The way things go is that the parents die first. How many parents have had to watch their kids die? How many parents have not gotten lucky enough to see their kids grow up and be parents and be college grads and high school grads and enter the workforce or follow their dreams? You know, this woman threw it all away. What, because she was a little bit medicated? Everybody's going to make an excuse for her? You know, she wasn't on psychedelic fucking drugs. So it's crazy. Aries says, or Aris, I'm not trying to read that. My brain had a 304 error code trying to read that tweet. Yeah, that tweet just lowered my IQ by at least 10 points. That woman's retarded. She can't type. She can't read, write, or anything. Takreem, hey, Takreem, what's up, bro? Salam alaikum. He says, hi, Ryad. I enjoy your videos. I love you. Love you too. Shout out to Takreem in the chat. Look, man responds, hey, Takreem. What's up, guys? Good to see you. Good to see you guys. Shug Namik says, welcome back, my Sudanese oyster. Very funny. Sudanese oyster eater. I hope all is well. Question, have you seen the EDP documentary? If so, what are your thoughts on it? No, I haven't seen it, but I was planning on reacting to it here with you guys. Maybe we can do that tonight, because there's just not much going on. But yeah, that I ain't gonna lie, EDP is one sick nigga, man. Some of the things he came out about were a little wild. A little wild. I guess he's facing prosecution again as a result of the documentary. Am I getting that right? If you guys don't know who EDP445 was, he was like some TikToker who got caught trying to exploit kids. It's like a pedophile or something like that. I don't know. Again, these are the stories that I don't keep up with, to be frank. So I couldn't tell you, but yeah, I saw some of the, we can maybe react to some of the clips. It's pretty funny. Well, it's not funny. It's sick, but it's, you know, worth watching. Let's see. When's your birthday? I feel like you're a Scorpio. No, not a Scorpio. My birthday's in October, so I guess I'm a Libra, right? Not that any of that is real. Would I be a Libra? It's in the beginning. Yeah. I'm a librarian. I'm a Libra. Beginning of October. Not that any of that is real, though. Or Capricorn. You think I'm a Capricorn? Is that what it's called? Capricorn, right? Capricorn is the 10th astrological sign in the zodiac. Yeah, we don't play with that stuff, okay? Blasphemy, no blasphemy. Okay? And don't be into don't be into no horoscope astrology. That's blasphemous. At least in Islam. I think it's blasphemous in Christianity too, from what I understand. Don't be doing that. Don't be doing that, okay? Go back to God. Go back to God. No, I'm kidding with you. Good to see you, Sagnos, right? King Shairu says, just found out I was trying to crush a married woman for 2 years from Nepal. Westernization. Wait, what? You were trying to crush a married woman for 2 years from Nepal. You were... What? Okay, first of all, Nepal, prayers for Nepal. They just got hit with a crazy, what was it, a tsunami? I don't even know what it was. Thousands of people either dead or missing. So prayers for Nepal. I think Nepal is right above India, under China, Central Asia, right? Or South Central Asia, technically. So yeah, prayers for Nepal. Really, really horrific scene out of Nepal. If you guys haven't seen that in the news, that's kind of everywhere. But you were trying to crush a married woman for 2 years. Why were you trying for 2 years, nigga? What the fuck is wrong with you? 2 years you were trying to have sex with a girl? You know what you could have been doing in those 2 years, you fucking idiot? I'm never mean to you guys, but what are you doing? Why are you wasting your time? 2 years you've been trying to have sex with a girl? Do you mean she was married for 2 years? Did you type wrong? Or you're saying you were trying to crush for 2 years? Wasting time, man. Yo, time is money, bro. Time is money. I'm watching niggas put data centers inside of their house and buy gallons and gallons of water to fund their data centers, code with Claude, and get rich. And you're trying to crush a girl for 2 years. This is the separation between the elite and the goyim. Lock in, gang. Twin, lock in. Trying to crush something for 2 years? That's crazy. Bro, if you didn't crush after the first few links, maybe spend your time elsewhere. Michaka, thank you for the 5 gifted, by the way. Appreciate that. Always showing love. I appreciate you, my friend. Big supporter of the show. Shout out to Michaka. God bless you. Hope everything is going well with you, my friend. Hope life is treating you well. Sogno Sprite says the EDP documentary is insane. Yeah, maybe we'll give it a watch at some point. I just don't even know what to expect. I've seen clips, and the clips are... And apparently he was a fan of my brother. Hold on, I'm going to pull it up now. Hang on. Oh, I have a headache. Let's see. Let me see if I can find it so you guys can know.
Nigga, really?
Yeah, so pretty much this is my favorite.
Hang on.
Book of all time. Yeah, so pretty much this is my favorite fucking book of all time, or at least one of my favorite books of all time. It's Why Women Deserve Less by Myron Gaines of the Fresh and Fit podcast. I think women deserve less because they ain't really shit. They don't bring nothing to the table but goddamn drama, fucking heartache, nagging, bitching, complaining. And I feel like this guy Myron Gaines has the fucking balls and the courage to revolt against these motherfuckers. Yeah, I mean, you know, a lot of people, man, they want to...
Whoa, this is a well done documentary. Oh, so this is like a real documentary. Who did it? The production actually seems decent.
Talk shit about, you know, Fresh and Fit and Andrew Tate about how it might be creepy for guys to, you know, go out with like younger girls. But it's like, it's the fucking truth. I mean, like, you can't fucking sit back and...
He's got a tape poster. Dude, this scene is crazy. Yo, bro, I promise this isn't the typical audience. Got a fat nigga accused of God knows what with the Myron Gaines bestseller and the No Brokies poster by Tate. Yo, they're trying to make the manosphere look like something it's not, okay?
Say that a 19-year-old isn't fucking bad as hell, isn't fucking hot. I mean, shit, man, like, a friend of mine who's 19, she got some big-ass fucking tits. I would milk the fuck out them bitches, you know what?
All right. That's enough of this guy. Let's see what my brother said.
Nigga, really? Oh, man. That's kind of funny. I ain't gonna lie. EDP loves Myron Gaines and promotes the book Women Deserve Less. Irritate. A deleted scene from the documentary The Sick Mind EDP streaming now on YouTube or X. Nigga.
Yeah, so pretty much this is my favorite fucking book of all time, or at least one of my favorite books of all time.
Yeah, we gotta watch the documentary. I'm gonna get back. I gotta focus. But we'll get back. We'll get back in a moment. Yeah, so okay, here we have a clip. He had a brutal corn addiction. I don't think YouTube likes that word. We'll look at this really quick.
Fights and shit, and I just want to see a chick just getting just shit and just fucking pounded out the bitch. You know what I mean? Just getting...
That's crazy. Just casually browsing porn is wild.
Like, turned the fuck out, you know what I mean? Fucking a bitch's innocence away, you know? The porn addiction definitely affects my sexual performance.
Yeah, porn addiction is crazy. Just like, hey, you know, I'm just gonna browse to fap.
Definitely. And that's just keeping it honest with you, you know. The shit's about to go down, nigga, we're about to have sex. Alright, cool. My shit cannot get hard in front of no chick. I don't give a fuck how bad the bitch is.
Yep.
Wait, what?
That's a problem with porn. You want to know a problem with corn? I had to stop saying it with a P. Guys struggle to actually get. This sounds so funny to say, but guys can't get an erection when it's go time, because you're watching guys do it instead of you doing it yourself. You know, if it were up to me, I think I'd like to ban corn in the United States, but I'd feel like there'd be adverse effects. Like, isn't that the situation in Russia? And that's the situation in all the Middle Eastern countries where they ban corn, and then because of the fact that they ban it, they increase the people's appetite for it because people were already used to it, or people are already sick from it. And so they go to new lengths not only to watch it, but to watch more extreme variations of it. I think that's what happens. So I don't even know if banning corn is going to fix it. I don't know if it's a fixable problem, to be honest. I don't know if you can even ban corn in the United States. You know, and I see Texas and other states trying to make legislation about it to get rid of it, or moving this, you know, take some steps in the way of removing it. But I think it would just have an adverse effect, and we'd create some serious monsters and freaks.
I love when bitches are milking their own tits.
Example number 1.
Like,
example A.
Wait, what?
I'm not sure. Well, more than likely, man, they just had a fucking kid. But
Who told him to be this honest? Like, who told him he had to be this honest?
they got like some big ass tits, man. They're like milking the shit and spraying it all over the fucking screen and shit. I actually do fuck with lesbian porn sometime.
This nigga's a sick, twisted individual, bro. Okay, she was married for 2 years. I got you. Okay. Crush a married woman for 2 years. Well, okay, the way you put it, King Shairu, you said, just found out I was trying to crush a married woman for 2 years from Nepal. So it sounded, the way you worded it is as if you were trying for 2 years. But now, and that's what I figured, but I wasn't sure. But she was married for 2 years. Yeah, they're all going, bro. They're all going. The amount of cheating that I see day to day, you know, I'm out and about. The amount of cheating I see and I hear about, the hometown drama that I catch wind of, it's honestly just keeping me more and more stable being alone. I think I'll be alone for a little while. I tweeted that too. We'll get into that, but let's finish this.
Yo, I will tell you guys this, man. Interestingly enough, look, I did not know this, or I didn't realize this, but lots of guys are like full on addicted to porn, bro. It's kind of insane. So many guys are addicted to porn. It's actually way more common than you guys think. Look, I know we're laughing about it like ha ha ha, but bruh, it's a very common thing, dude. It's so fucking common, unfortunately. It really is. So, niggas really be on their fat shit, man.
Lesbian porn is some good shit. Now,
Chats here so we can get into the actual story out of New York Times, and then I'll go over my thoughts on it. So Rydo says, my stepfather is likely going to need open brain surgery soon. Please pray for him. It makes me so sad watching my parents grow old. He deserves more. Hey man, God bless, and prayers are going out for him. Everybody pray for Rydo's stepfather. That's always a little scary and unnerving. Open heart surgery, open brain surgery. A little bit of higher risk procedures, right? So prayers to you, my friend. Stay strong, pull through, and God willing, the surgery will be successful. But it's the reality of watching your parents age. You know, some people kind of deal with the complications of age a little bit worse than others. Some are a little better off, and might I add, lucky. So prayers for you, my friend. Prayers for you. Stay in there. Hang in there, man. Hang in there, soldier. King Shairu, okay, you corrected me. Thank you for that. All right. So, yeah, there is a corn epidemic, though. I think I'm going to just say porn. I sound so corny. I really no, I don't think YouTube cares. There is a porn epidemic. No doubt about it. No doubt about it, but we knew that already. But we knew that. The Sandwich says, Ryad, how do you defeat Snow Bunny mind control? Thank you for the 5. What is that question? How do I defeat Snow Bunny mind control? Like, how do I defeat liking white women? I've said this before. White women are pretty, I think. But I don't really have like a... And people think I LARP when I say this, or like I'm acting. I don't really have a type. Like, I don't have a particular type. I will say this, and this is something that me and my bro discussed today. My friend and I I came to this realization as I was talking about it. You know, that's why you got to talk about things, because you learn new things about yourself. You have epiphanies. I had this epiphany today. I don't like mixed girls. And just hear me out. It's something about a girl being so racially ambiguous. It just kind of throws me off. Does anybody else agree with that? Maybe that's a hot take. But not always, but usually, like, they're so mystery meat. They're like a mysterious flavor. And it's just weird. I kind of like a girl one way or the other. Either she's black, either she's white, either she's Spanish, she's Asian. I'm not a big fan. I've never had a lot of like black men are drawn to mixed women. I don't see it. But maybe that's just me being 24, and then next year when I'm 25, I'll change my mind. I guess I'm young. But yeah, I'm not crazy on mixed girls. You know? Sometimes they can pass when they have like the curly hair, all right? But you know what I mean? Like, they just look odd. It's like, what are you? But mixed people are generally very good looking. By the way, I'm not saying they're ugly. They're probably hot, but I just don't, you know, it never tickled my fancy for some odd reason. So, I don't know. But no, I'm not in some crisis where I have to defend myself from being attracted to snow bunnies. I will admit I do live around a lot of white people, but I'm inside, bro. I'm inside, to be honest. Cape Verde women, yes, Cape Verde women are pretty. Cape Verdean women are pretty. I'm aware of Cape Verde. Let's see. You see what I mean? Yeah, Jacob agrees. You see what I'm saying? If she's bad, she's bad. Race doesn't matter at all. I agree, but sometimes the racially ambiguous, I just hate when I can't discern as to like what you are. It like pisses me off in some weird way. This is like not attractive. And I can still, and objectively the girl can be pretty. And I'll admit that. Like I'll concede like, oh, she's pretty. But I don't know. Is that just me? Unpopular opinion, maybe. Unpopular opinion. But whatever. Let's see. Jacob, by the way, can you please cut out when EDP said that? If you don't mind, bro, I'll text you. I appreciate that. I'm sure you got the timestamp already. Let's see. L. Dr. Umar. Yeah, no, I mean, look, I always respect somebody who's prideful and nationalistic. I don't demonize tribalism like that. So Dr. Umar is kind of based sometimes. You know, anybody who's a nationalist for their own people, I don't mind it. Me and Sneako argued about that. Sneako was like, oh, but there shouldn't be any nationalism. Everybody should band together. I'm like, bro, that's a fairy tale world. That will never happen. That will never work. We argued about that on one of my videos I posted a while back when I was with him in New York. I think we were talking about what constitutes or what is defined as a white person. And then I was telling him, you know, people are always going to stick within their own and date their own. And he was like, oh, that's wrong. And I was like, not really, though. I think there's nobility to that. I kind of admire that in a way. Because here's the thing. Last thing. I'm just going to say it. When you clash cultures, my uncle told me this when I was young. And I was a little bit more liberal when I was young. So I was like 8, by the way. I was like, nah, no, that's not true. You know, anybody can get along. Love is love, right? But as I aged, I realized, yeah, like, race mixing sometimes has bad outcomes. Not in terms of the kids or the way the kids look. That's not my view. Just more so, you know, when you go to an interracial marriage or you go to an interracial wedding, look around. It's just odd. There's just like friction to me. Does anybody else feel that way? I don't know. I saw some video of like some Sudanese guy marrying a white girl and she was doing all the traditions and I was just like kind of cringing at it. Because I see her dad in the back like smiling and I just know deep down in his mind he's like disappointed. And I see the Sudanese mom in the back smiling and I know deep down in her mind she's like, yeah, my son's a dumbass. But maybe my opinions are unpopular. So anyways, let's talk about the news. We'll read this article very quickly and then I'll give you guys my thoughts. So this is going to be a pretty comprehensive update on the situation in Iran. Unfortunately, nothing super new. We kind of went over this, but there are some new developments to the story. So for what it's worth, we will give it a read. This is by the New York Times here. Let me just get this all set up for you guys. Kind of move this around, reacting to the clips. Oops. Okay. All right. And this here reads, U.S. attempts to strangle Iran's economy depends on China's cooperation. And so this was 3 days ago out of the New York Times, but I saved it because it's a pretty good article. We'll read through it very briefly, and then I'll give you guys my thoughts. So it says here, in declaring a new economic D-Day for Iran on Monday, President Trump and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent are reaching out for yet another strategy to grope their way out of a military adventure gone wrong. Along the way, they are reversing the usual approach of coercing adversaries to bend to American will. Ordinarily, Washington approaches a problem like dismantling Iran's nuclear program with straightforward diplomacy. If that goes nowhere, officials mix in escalating economic sanctions, adding an element of coercion. Military action is a last resort, and only if the president determines that risking American lives is worth the possible benefit. But Mr. Trump leaped from a brief round of diplomacy straight to bombing runs meant to force the country to give up its stockpiles of 11 tons of enriched uranium, including a batch that was nearly bomb-ready and perhaps collapse the government. The attacks failed at both objectives, at the cost of 18 American lives, hundreds or thousands of Iranians dead, and a price tag that independent analysts put at over $100 billion though the Pentagon's estimates are lower. And only now are Mr. Trump and Mr. Bessent trying one more grand experiment named Operation Economic Outcast, that the White House described as an unprecedented campaign to sever every remaining economic lifeline sustaining the Islamic Republic of Iran. The plan is not implausible, as described by Mr. Bessent. It involves choking off every last transaction that funnels money to Tehran, whether it is well-disguised digital transactions or ship-to-ship transfers of oil, the movement of gold around the globe. This is a sustained operation to collapse every last option for Iran, Mr. Bessent, who has become the public face of the effort at economic strangulation, said at news conference at the Treasury on Monday. But the effort raises a series of questions that the White House has not answered. First among them is why? If sanctions as airtight as these are possible, they were not employed before Mr. Trump ordered the U.S. military into battle, exposing shortages of key munitions and the limits of American military power. And now that the military has, in Mr. Bessent's words, laid the groundwork for success, what about China, which has purchased more than 80% of Iran's oil exports in 2025? Is the admin willing to risk another direct confrontation with Beijing, with which it is already at odds over artificial intelligence, Taiwan, a rapid nuclear expansion, and huge production overhang that threatens the global economy and the U.S. economy? The original D-Day on the shores of Normandy did not require Chinese participation. This economic D-Day does. There is no indication so far that this is forthcoming, a month before President Xi Jinping is scheduled to arrive in Washington for his first state visit in more than a decade. This will be tricky, Peter Harrell, a visiting scholar at Georgetown Law School who has written extensively on the limits of economic sanctions, said on Monday. Earlier this year, in deciding how to bring Iran to its knees, Mr. Trump had a choice to really come down hard on the Chinese, which he didn't want to do because of his own economic agenda with Xi, or put the naval blockade on the Iranian takers, Mr. Harrell noted. If it turned out it was politically easier to put the blockade on all the Iranian takers than to tell the Chinese, we will sanction your big companies if they continue their trade with Iran. It is still a delicate issue, Mr. Bessent threatened what are called secondary sanctions on all nations that continue to do business with Iran. But in an opinion article for the Financial Times over the weekend and at his news conference on Monday, Mr. Bessent never uttered the word China. He was going out of his way to avoid angering the world's second largest economy and the one nation that may well determine whether this new White House strategy has a chance. Of course, there is nothing new in trying to make Iran an economic outcast. The first serious efforts to impose sanctions on Iran for its nuclear program date back to George W. Bush administration. When the Obama administration was trying to push Iran into negotiations in 2009, the Secretary of State at the time, Hillary Clinton, promised crippling sanctions unless the country entered negotiations. It took years to generate results, but many experts contend that the escalating sanctions that followed helped compel Iran to agree to the 2015 nuclear accord, that's the JCPOA, sharply limiting its nuclear work in return for a lifting of financial and oil sanctions. Mr. Trump ripped up that agreement in 2018, declaring it deeply flawed. At the time, he began reimposing sanctions, and he and his Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, predicted that the economic pressure would be too much for Iran's leaders to take. The Trump administration is pursuing a maximum pressure campaign designed to choke off revenues at the regime, and particularly the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, part of Iran's military that is directly beholden to the supreme leader, uses to fund violence. Mr. Pompeo wrote in Foreign Affairs in late 2018. Yet, President Trump does not want another long-term U.S. military engagement in the Middle East. Mr. Pompeo, now estranged from Mr. Trump, sounded many of the themes repeated by Mr. Besson on Monday. The exception is that the United States is now committed to a military presence off Iran's coast for an intermittent amount of time, but certainly as long as Iran threatens shipping through the Strait of Hormuz. The record of these past sanctions is unimpressive. Iran kept shipping 2 million to 3 million barrels of oil a day. Despite them, those numbers have now come down to a trickle thanks to the U.S. naval blockade that is in place. But the nuclear material has not moved out of its rubble-covered storage sites since the United States bombed those areas in June 2025, satellite photographs indicate. And the government survives, though under different management after Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was killed in the opening strikes of the war in February. His son was considered a hardliner, more of a hardliner, now holds the post, even though he has not been seen or heard from directly. And that's because Israel would kill him if they found out his whereabouts. As a result, one of the more curious elements of Mr. Besson's speech on Monday came when he returned to a promise made by Mr. Trump nearly 6 months ago that he would establish the conditions for regime change. At the time, Mr. Trump thought that the military battle would last a few days or a few weeks before Iran offered what the president called unconditional surrender. He urged the Iranian people to rise up and take their government. After the smoke of the American bombing cleared, Mr. Trump soon abandoned that effort, acknowledging in an interview with the New York Times in June that Iranian people simply did not have the guns or organization to make that happen. Mr. Besson tried a slightly different approach on Monday. To the ordinary soldiers supporting this regime, Mr. Besson said, as more and more of your paychecks stop or are supposedly just delayed, ask whether your commanders are leading your country to triumph or to ruin, and recall that the Berlin Wall fell when ordinary soldiers decided not to shoot at their own people. Crazy. Of course, the circumstances when the wall fell were entirely different than they are in Iran. There was no external active war going on, just the accelerating pressure on the Cold War, and the Soviet Union and its satellites saw little hope in putting down the local uprisings, including one in East Germany that led to Mr. Besson's historical analogy. Yet, that is Mr. Trump's big bet right now. His decision in February to forego the kind of sanctions announced on Monday and to move right to military force was in some ways an acknowledgement that economic sanctions move slowly and that history suggests they often fail to work. Today, he is back to that plan for absence of many other viable choices. So, we spoke about this already last week before I effectively died with my stomach problem. And it's honestly just the same situation, but there's an angle of China that's mentioned that's worth mentioning. So we can kind of go over it really quickly, but it's very simple. Look, we've been at war with Iran for I think 170 days now. So it's been 6 months. I think just a few days ago it made official it was 6 months. And what have we achieved in these 6 months? Literally nothing. Remember the outline goals of the United States when we attacked Iran at the end of February, going into the beginning of March, and we bombed them 15,000 plus times. What was Pete Hegseth saying out of the Pentagon? What was Marco Rubio promising to everybody, to the press? What was Donald Trump promising on Truth Social? We would change the regime organically. From the top down, we would get rid of the top people, and then the people of Iran, the Iranian people, the local populace, would have this effect where they would take back control of their country and bring back this Shah-like regime where there's democracy and there's voting and there's no more brutal theocracy that's ruling over the country and killing people for no reason, as the IRGC is blamed of doing. And so we promised to do that. We also promised that in changing the regime, a bunch of other things would necessarily follow, like getting rid of their nuclear arsenal, getting rid of their highly enriched uranium. They don't have a nuclear arsenal. Sorry, I misspoke there. Their highly enriched uranium, their nuclear facilities, their centrifuges, or at the minimum, getting them to downblend by bombing them to hell in March like we did. And Iran stood firm. And Iran has 2 points of strategic leverage against the United States that we can't deal with on a long enough timescale. And what is that? Or timeline. And what is that? That's their ability to bomb the Gulf countries, which they did right after we attacked at the end of February. They hit 7 Gulf countries within hours of being attacked, like UAE, Bahrain. I think Qatar even got hit several times. You had Saudi Arabia getting hit, which no one saw coming in their eastern province, like their capital right outside of Ryad, as well as other Middle Eastern countries. At one point, even Oman, that shares control with Iran with respect to the Strait of Hormuz, was attacked as well. And so Iran was doing that to U.S. allies, and they were specifically targeting U.S. military infrastructure and U.S. military bases in the Middle East to make it painful for us to continue our aerial assault, our military offensive in Tehran or anywhere inland or along their coastline. And simultaneously, as they were doing that, they began to block the Strait of Hormuz. And everybody was confused as to why the U.S. had no response for this. But Iran started to plant mines in the water. They threatened that they would hurl drones and missiles at any ship that passed through the Strait of Hormuz without their permission, without paying a tax, paying the toll, and going through Iranian designated waterways as opposed to any Omani U.S. created designated waterways. And the ships, of course, followed directions. But any time the war got painful or devastating, or the U.S. did something, or Israel, more importantly, did something that Iran didn't like, they would pretty much block the Strait of Hormuz entirely. And in doing that, they've made the energy crisis become apparent. And now the world is facing an energy crisis like we've never seen in several decades. 1/5 of the world's energy goes through that 21-mile passageway in the Strait of Hormuz leading out into the Indian Ocean. And without that flowing like normal, a lot of countries face economic pressure. A lot of countries in the continent of Asia, as well as Europe, and now increasingly the United States. And so, all of these things are happening, and Iran is effectively winning the war, and we've achieved none of our goals. And so I'm drawing this all out to you to show you where this led us. Donald Trump, in the face of all this, had a few decisions. He could either attack Iran more, because remember, we brokered the ceasefire to kind of give ourselves some relief from the blockade in the Strait of Hormuz, because the more we bomb Iran, the more they block the Strait, and that's something we increasingly can't deal with. And funny enough, they could deal with being bombed more than we can deal with the Strait being closed. Had that not been the case, we would have continued to bomb them well into April. But on April 6th, we brokered that ceasefire. And so Trump had a few options from here. Trump could either continue his military escalation and try and destroy Iran and just do some brutal tactic and destroying the country and destroying its infrastructure and destroying all of its oil refineries and its power grid and putting the country or plummeting it into darkness and sending it back to the Stone Age like he threatened. But the problem with that is they would attack the Gulf countries in response. And so what did we do? We tried to kind of thread the needle. And this was last month, if you remember that back and forth in the beginning of July. We were going back and forth with Iran for about 2 weeks, trying to destabilize their control of the Strait of Hormuz. So the goals and the real idea of being aggressive militarily against Iran shifted. At one point in the beginning, it was to completely decapitate the regime and change the power structure from within. But it actually shifted in July to us just wanting the Strait of Hormuz to be open for the world. And primarily us not wanting Iran to really have control of the ships passing through. And so it was a matter of maritime security and maritime control in the U.S.'s benefit. And we tried to do that for 14 days, didn't work. And you remember on the 13th day, we were going to go into the 14th day, Trump had promised, this was a month ago on a Friday, that he would hit Iran with weapons and a bomb like we have never seen before, something similar to that of World War II. I can't remember his statement exactly, but to the effect of that, he made the biggest threat that he had made in the entire escalation of those 13 days. And the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia called him up. He called Washington and he said, don't you dare do what you're thinking about doing, because if you do, my country will be destroyed. Saudi Arabia has been getting pummeled, not only by Iran. Iran really hasn't even been doing most of the work. It's Iran's proxies. It's the PMF, the Popular Mobilization Forces in Iraq, hurling drones over into Saudi Arabia and destroying their oil refineries. It's also Ansar Allah, or the Houthis in Yemen, also destroying the oil refineries and oil infrastructure, and hitting Abha Airport in southern Saudi Arabia, and hitting the Yanbu port on the coast of the Red Sea. in Western Saudi Arabia that is responsible for the circumvention of oil flowing through the Red Sea and around so they don't have to rely on the Strait of Hormuz heavily. And even Saudi Arabia is losing the ability to exercise that as some sort of economic outlet for relief. And so MBS and other Middle Eastern leaders are begging Trump to make peace with Iran. Erdogan from Turkey, MBS as well, Mohammed bin Salman, Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. In some capacity, I'm sure Mohammed bin Zayed, the president or the prime minister of the United Arab Emirates, is also asking Donald Trump to kind of relinquish some of his aggression in the Strait of Hormuz and against Iran. And so Trump has realized the military option doesn't work. And so, as I told you earlier, in the face of the fact that the 15,000 bombs didn't work, Trump was left with a few options. The military option is completely off the table. There's no way we can destroy Iran. They're fortified by mountains. Boots on ground would be a suicide mission. And if we bomb them, they're just going to continue to bomb our Gulf allies. So where does that leave us? Economic war. And we've tried to kind of threaten Iran with sanctions. We tried the naval blockade. If you remember a few months back, and I believe May, we tried to launch something called Operation Epic Freedom, where we were going to guide these oil vessels and these cargo ships out of the Strait of Hormuz. That failed miserably, was embarrassing. And so we said we're going to continue our naval blockade. Then we lifted the naval blockade as a result of the Memorandum of Understanding, which was supposed to be a 60 or 90-day buffer in which we further negotiate till we make some concrete deal in terms of peace. That didn't work. And so it's left Trump with no other option. By the way, we're right outside of midterms, but to try and impose some sort of economic pressure and isolate Iran from the global community. But again, there's problems with this. What are the obvious ones? China and Iran have been partners for 25 years. You don't think China and Iran have something figured out to deal with U.S. economic pressure? Iran has learned to live with U.S. sanctions. Iran has learned to live as a rogue state. They understand how to function under the pressure from the United States and its Western allies and NATO and anybody else. And by the way, they have close relations with a NATO partner in the Middle East, but also in Europe, transcontinental country, that being Turkey. And Turkey has a very capable military. Turkey has a stable economy. And Turkey wants this war to be over as much as anybody else. And so in the attempt to try and alienate Iran from the global community and destroy their economy, Trump is also alienating himself from everybody. And he's doing this with Canada too, but we'll talk about that in a moment. And the biggest thing is, for us to really hurt Iran's economy, yeah, we addressed the UAE, and it seems like the UAE is working with us to kind of put an embargo on all of the trade between them and Iran, and I believe that's around somewhere in the ballpark of $40 billion or $20 billion of annual worth, and so that's significant. I know Iran gives the UAE a lot of agricultural goods, and in exchange for that, the UAE gives Iran lots of technology, phones, devices, things of the sort. And so they've paused that. That's been halted for now. And that comes after the plan last week that was announced by Trump and Besant to kind of put this embargo and this, economic outcast of, any sort of, or really just make Iran their own little island away from the entire world when it comes to their economy and trade. And you have to address China, because China buys all of Iran's oil, literally all of it, around 80 or 90%. If it wasn't for China, then Iran would have some serious problems. But thanks to China, Iran's economy stays afloat. And again, like I said, they've been friends and allies for the better part of the last decade. So think about it. We tried killing the regime. We tried destroying the country. We tried to pressure Iran, and we tried negotiating. None of it worked. So now we're facing economic D-Day. This won't be transformative in the slightest. This is the same thing we've effectively been doing forever. And by the way, if this had any promise of actually working, why wouldn't we do this before bombing them 20,000 times? It begs the question, if we actually had the ability to relinquish Iran's economic capability or economic freedom and their ability to keep their people fed to a significant degree, wouldn't we have tried that before bombing the shit out of them and destroying the Middle East and causing a regional war? I think the answer is yes. And so this is unrealistic. And in my opinion, it's really just a paper tiger to try and save face and make it look like we're doing something to hurt Iran. But Iran has said time and time again, ever since the middle of July, that's it. They're done dealing with the United States. They're going to continue their Strait of Hormuz control until Trump is no longer president. And if there's any negotiations, it will involve zero concessions from the IRGC or the Iranian regime as a whole. And so now it's left the U.S. with no choice but to, if they want to negotiate, we have to make concessions. And we did that. But still, Israel is in the middle of everything, and they always possess the ability to agitate and destroy and sabotage the peace deal, which they're doing with Lebanon. What was a part of the Memorandum of Understanding and what was a part of the greater peace deal between the United States and Iran? It was that Israel had its hands off of southern Lebanon. As you know, Israel is waging a great offensive against southern Lebanon and is trying to create a buffer zone between the Litani River and their northern border for the security of northern Israel. And Iran wants Israel to completely remove their control and pull out of southern Lebanon. Benjamin Netanyahu, Ben Gvir, and the likes of them will never do such a thing and refuse to do so. And their excuse to that is security against the Hezbollah regime or the Hezbollah proxy, the militant group that is funded by and supported by Iran, is a direct extension of Iranian control and influence. And so what happened today? Israel bombed Lebanon. What has been happening in the last few weeks that no one's talking about, by the way, Israel is still bombing Lebanon. So even if, think about this, and let me make this straight, even if we figure out how to work out some deal with Iran, we get the negotiations all ironed out, and we figure it out, we kind of save face, we don't look like we're losing that bad. I mean, you and I know we're losing that bad, but to the normies and the general public, it doesn't look like we're losing that bad. Exactly what happens with Lebanon? Exactly what is going to happen with Israel? We still need Israel to play ball, and they never will play ball. And so now we're trying to undermine China, but China's got nothing to do with this. If we try and undermine China, it's going to hurt our economy. We need to trade with China. They give us rare earth. They give us essential minerals. They give us a bunch of things. That's responsible for military logistical infrastructure, jets, turbines, EVs, other critical things that the United States can't skimp out on. And previously, Trump tried to enter a trade war with China, and it seems like we were the ones who previously blinked at it because of them seizing their exports into the United States and them stopping trade with us. And so we can't really afford to get into an economic war with China right now. Not when the Strait of Hormuz is closed, not when we're also fighting Canada. These things aren't plausible. These things aren't realistic. And so the timing is worse than it ever could be. If we tried this maybe in February or even before that in the beginning of the year in January, then maybe we had a deal, maybe we had something going, but it just doesn't seem like that's promising. And so there's a summit coming up, I believe on September 24th, where Xi Jinping will visit Washington for the first time in a long time. And hopefully they figure something out so the United States can just move around this, because this isn't going to work. And here's the biggest thing. Right now we're in a stalemate. Iran benefits from all the pauses and all the stalemates. They are the ones controlling the strait. They are the ones tolling the ships. They're getting time to recollect and gather themselves. What does that look like? Moving the rubble from the entrances of their nuclear sites so they can get access to all of their nuclear, or their highly enriched uranium rather. And they're also getting time to further build up their missile stockpile, their drone stockpile, and everything else they need to resist the United States like they've effectively done for the last 6 months. Iran also has outlets for economic relief. They have the Caspian Sea, and they have other measures that they've used and utilized for years to kind of oppose or circumvent the issue of U.S. sanctions, which, by the way, I'll admit, hurt them, but don't hurt them enough to completely admonish their own control and step down as a regime. That's asinine. And so that would just never happen. That's not realistic. If it were to happen, it would have happened after the 15,000 bombs raining upon their heads. It didn't. And this is the biggest part, and this is what Robert Pape was trying to draw out before the war had started in his Substack and his escalation trap. Iran is now becoming even more powerful because of this. When this is all said and done, it won't be crazy to assert that Iran is potentially a global superpower. Think about it. Is Iran having a nuclear weapon actually worse than them controlling 1/5 of the world's energy supply? It's worth a thought. Potentially their control of the Strait of Hormuz is just as drastic, if not even worse for the United States than having a nuclear weapon in the first place. And as well as the fact, I got to add, Iran was never going to even develop a nuclear weapon. Tulsi Gabbard told us that last year in March. So all of these things kind of point to one reason or one question one would logically follow from everything I'm telling you. Why did the U.S. ever attack Iran? Why did the U.S. ever decide it was a good idea? What was the motivation? There was no political appetite. It's unfortunately because, not to be, an Israeli derangement syndrome, as they call you, right? Israeli derangement syndrome, but it's because Israel controls the United States full on. And they have a disproportionate amount of control and representation in our Congress, in the House, in the Senate, and they pay a lot of our politicians a lot of money to vote on certain legislation that ensures they'll always have representation, and that also ensures simultaneously they'll always get military support in the Middle East, even as far to the extent that we will fight their wars for them, which Donald Trump has done perfectly for the last 6 months. So it's quite unfortunate, but you can see why this never benefited us. We created a superpower. And for what it's worth, can we even walk away? These are the questions that we have to ask as to what's coming next. Can we even walk away from Iran now? We're trying to impose this economic D-Day by threatening them and alienating them from the global community in terms of trade, but we're not mentioning China. Okay, paper tiger. Because if you want to talk about hurting Iran's economy, you got to mention China. You have to. They're the ones who are supplying them satellite, by the way. They're the ones that are potentially supplying them missiles. They're supplying them radars and other logistical infrastructure that has helped them in resisting the United States for the last 6 months. Russia as well. And they have the Caspian Sea so they can trade with Russia and do whatever they need to do to circumvent any U.S. naval blockade. And so, look, is there economic pressure felt in Iran? 100%. But there's also been economic pressure felt in Iran for the last 20 years. For the last 20 years, the Iranian people have suffered at the face of U.S. sanctions. You realize that, right? So when is it that the Iranian people are going to revolt and take back their country? When they are threatened by Israel and the United States and they're dealing with the sanctions, or when they were dealing with the sanctions prior? If there's ever a time, it wouldn't be right now. There's a rally around the flag effect. You try and imagine the United States getting bombed for 100 and something days straight, and then trying to overthrow your regime that's defending you and themselves from regime change and Israeli control. And by the way, the whole point of Iranian regime change is to benefit Israel in their mission of expansion by encroaching upon all the borders around their own country and taking them without any resistance. Iran houses and controls something called the Axis of Resistance. These are several different militant groups funded and supported by Iran. Within the Axis of Resistance, you have a few notable key figures that play a significant role in keeping Israel at bay and controlling their behavior. This is from the Iranian perspective. You have the Popular Mobilization Forces. You have Hezbollah in Lebanon. PMF, by the way, that I just mentioned is in Iraq. You have the Houthis in Yemen. To some effect, you have Hamas in Gaza, although they're really a non-player in this situation. And you have other rogue groups as well that are unnamed. And Iran does everything in its power to counter-signal and try and leverage their own influence in the Middle East. And by the way, they do this to go against the Gulf nations as well. We know they're not allied with any of the Gulf nations, ideologically, that is, to say the least. And so this proxy group also serves as a threat to any sort of Sunni coalition that tries to form and gain a ton of influence. Don't be mistaken. Iran is defending themselves and they're trying to counter Israel's control, but they also do want influence in the Middle East. And you would only ever understand that if you were paying attention to what Iran was doing in Syria around 2014 and 2015. So don't be a fool. Iran also wants influence. But I'd rather a situation where we have two great powers kind of battling for influence versus Israel having all of it. Because if Israel has all of it, then the United States doesn't need to be involved in the Middle East at all. And what does that look like? You would think, oh, it's better because U.S. intervention in the Middle East always means innocent people dying in mass numbers. Yeah, that's with Israel, though. If Israel gets to act by themselves, there's no telling how far they would go. Look at what they're doing, even with Iran existing, with their proxy groups and the United States backing them, and at this point, condemning them. The Gaza situation got so bad that Trump even had to come out and say, you have to feed the Gazans. About a year ago, when they were facing a crisis of starvation in the Gaza Strip, and they were blocking off food and shooting Palestinians in the head for trying to get food and flour and rice, even Trump, the Israeli himself, had to come out and say, you got to give them food. This is getting ridiculous. And the global community has completely alienated Israel as well. And the ICC wants Benjamin Netanyahu arrested. If this country gets their own independence, really, in the Middle East, and they don't have to face the power of Iran checking their power, this is a checks and balances system in the Middle East. We face a grave, grave threat in Israel itself. Israel becomes a grave, grave threat to the United States. Believe me when I tell you. Believe me when I tell you. So it's unfortunate, but one could argue, I suppose, it's beneficial in counter-signaling Israel, because Iran, when these sanctions end, and believe they'll have to end, because Trump has to win politically in the United States to stay president, so these sanctions have to take some sort of form or shape, but when they end, because they're senseless and they make no sense, it's all a paper tiger, quickly you'll understand that Iran has become one of the greatest superpowers in the world. And by the way, where's their nuclear program at this point? We already understand they have the missile stockpile, they have the drone stockpile, they have the regime, so they have tons of military power, but we also don't even know where their nuclear program is. Are they close to making a bomb? Are they about to make a bomb? This is also very concerning. We don't know. We like to say we know, but we don't. So, a lot of things to think about at the same time, but, you know, we really, when you look at it, we really screwed up if we created a country that has a nuclear bomb, a primitive nuclear device, and control of 20% of the world's global energy supply. Something to consider. Something to consider. So this won't work. Obviously, I don't think that takes an extensive analysis or tons of conversation, but it's just not going to work. Simply not going to work. But anyways, that's the situation in Iran. Like the video, guys. I appreciate all the support. But just an unfortunate development. I'd like to tell you guys, hey, it looks like the war is coming to an end, but Trump just can't take an L. Donald Trump cannot take an L at all. So we'll see what happens, but midterms are going to be brutal, to say the least. And seats are going to flip. But anyways, I wanted to transition into Hassan Piker caught some wind over the weekend as I was dying, spending hours in the bathroom. I was seeing these videos of Hassan Piker going viral, mocking Charlie Kirk's assassination and, catching some heat for being alongside the Senate primary nominee, Abdul El-Sayed, who won just a few weeks ago. We covered that story as well. So we can watch some of it. And you know what? For what it's worth, we can even watch El-Sayed's interview with Fox with Jesse Waters. I thought that was pretty interesting as well. So let me get that pulled up. I think I had a couple chats come in, so I'll read those very briefly. But yeah. But not much else. Not much else to cover with respect to the Middle East. Israel bombed Nebatia last night, I believe, or yesterday at some point. So you have that, which is in southern Lebanon. Nothing new there. All right. Okay. So let's see. What do I have for chats? The Sandwich. Ryad, how do you defeat... Okay, I read that. Vincent Williams. CENTCOM says Strait is now open and mine-free. I saw that, actually. Glad you mentioned it. That's a good segue. Thank you for reminding me. So, breaking. CENTCOM says it cleared Iran's mines and the Strait of Hormuz is open. Admiral Brad Cooper's account is that the Navy divers, SEALs, and air power spent months clearing the internationally recognized traffic lanes of IRGC mines, with nearly 1,500 vessels escorted out, carrying close to 750 million barrels. So let's
has achieved. Hi, I'm Admiral Brad Cooper, Commander of U.S. Central Command, here with an operational update on 2 ongoing missions in the Middle East. Many of our 50,000 U.S. troops operating across the region are doing outstanding work executing the naval blockade against Iran while maintaining commercial traffic flow through the Strait of Hormuz. As recently announced, the U.S. military has achieved a major milestone in the Strait of Hormuz. we have successfully cleared sea mines in the Strait's international shipping lanes that were laid months ago by Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Internationally recognized transit routes in the Strait are free of Iranian sea mines thanks to the incredible work of the U.S. military.
And again, to quickly check this, the mines are not even the biggest issue. And by the way, Iran can redeploy these mines effortlessly. These mines, via the Pentagon, months ago, were stated to take 6 months to clear. Maybe it took them 3 months from when I read that statement, so a little bit sooner. But as difficult as it is for us to clear these mines, it's increasingly even easier for Iran to redeploy them. And by the way, Iran doesn't need mines in the Strait. The problem with Iran is not that they're bombing ships in the Strait. Understand this. This is the fundamental understanding that will allow you to understand why the United States is in this corner that it can't escape from. It's not that Iran is threatening to hit ships and drones and we have to police the Strait because we care about the ships. That's not it. It's that they control the Strait. We can't allow Iran to have that much influence on the Strait of Hormuz. 20% of global energy passes through there. Do you understand? We can't allow Iran to do that. And in the beginning, it seemed like we thought we could relinquish their ability or completely destroy their ability to destroy the Strait if they ever tried it. We were gravely mistaken. And our intelligence told us that won't be easy. It was Netanyahu and the Israelis who visited Trump 7 times in the last 9 months since he's been elected. They were the ones that told him, hey, actually, it won't be too hard to destroy Iran and topple the regime. We've already done the groundwork. We've laid it out for you. All you got to do is bomb the hell out of them. So it's just silly when CENTCOM comes out with a statement and is like, we cleared the mines. That's not going to make a difference, actually. When a crazy IRGC commander is saying, we will drone the fuck out of your ship if you try and pass through these waters. You think they're going to go, oh, but there's no mines, so I'm going to go anyways. And then proceeds to get hit with 10 Shahed drones. But the U.S. cleared the mine. The U.S. cleared the mine in the water. Okay, stupid fuck. I get a little angry because the Trumpies try and tell me, see, Trump is doing something. We've been at it for 6 months. Let me say something really quick. Let me crash out. Let me chimp out. We've been at war for 6 months. How could anybody support Donald Trump anymore? How could you? If you're watching this and you're on the fence, you're walking a tightrope. I don't know. Is Trump doing a good job or is this war in Iran about? What the fuck is wrong with you? Wake up. We are at war with Iran. This is the worst strategic defeat that the United States has faced since Germany in World War II, or strategic potential defeat that we faced since World War II potentially, or even before that. I don't think Vietnam was this bad. I wouldn't even say Vietnam was this bad. I don't think Iraq was this bad. Why? Because we didn't destroy the global energy market as a result. Iran has a very special ability that other countries don't have when we attack them. They can choke energy, and they've done that. The only reason oil just recently came down is because it was Iran that came out and said, we made a temporary deal with Oman. And the Qatari prime minister is in Tehran right now trying to work a deal out. That's why the oil prices have slightly come down. Not because of economic D-Day. That's not doing anything. So it's just like, I can't even believe people, and I know you guys aren't falling for it, but like when I watch this, I'm just like, are people eating the slop up? Anyways, it's fine. We'll finish, but sorry, and when I said what I said earlier, not greatest strategic defeat, I mean the greatest difficulty the U.S. has faced. Without a doubt, the greatest difficulty the U.S. has faced in the last 20, 30 years comes nothing close to this one. I think this is without a doubt the worst. Without a doubt the worst. The last time the U.S. was in this deep of shit was World War II. Easy. And people aren't recognizing how significant this defeat in Iran is, but they will in 3 or 4 years. That's always how it is. So it's cyclical like that. But let me just get I had to chimp out.
Let's take a look at exactly what this means. Here's a nautical chart of the Strait of Hormuz and surrounding seas. It's frequently used by mariners around the world and clearly identifies the internationally recognized traffic separation scheme, which you see labeled on the chart as TSS. A traffic separation scheme is a highway system for ships on the ocean. Here on the chart, a dividing line is shown and placed between lanes with opposing traffic directions to keep ships safely.
Got some chats in here. Vincent Williams says CENTCOM right now is open and mine free. All right, so we just watched that. While we were watching that, let's see. Got hair in my mouth. Ryad Dickum Down says, where you been, Dada? Also, I cracked the Zio. Very good. Thank you for the 2, Ryad Dickum Down. Sagno Sprite says, Dada Ryad. Thank you. Daddy Ryad? Ratty Daddy? Is that the new name, Ratty Daddy? Let's see. Am I shedding hair? What is with all the hair in my mouth? All right, so let's see. Where are we? Oh, I wanted to watch this. See, you know, your brain's moving so fast on stream, sometimes you just forget. So that's Iran. Enough chimping out. But without a doubt, the greatest difficulty the United States has faced in a long time, right? And this comes from all the experts. This is what all the people with credibility are saying. So you can listen to all the silly MAGA shills on X, but the economists, the political scientists, the war analysts, the people with brains, they're saying something very different. So lock in. Lock in. But I wanted to watch this video about the potential verdicts for this crazy bitch's trial. Let's see. Epic Fire, thank you for the 5. He says, I used to pay around $20-ish to fill my tank. Now I'm paying close to 50. My goodness. This war is making me pay 2.5 double, 2.5 double the price just to get to work. Yeah. You know, you're paying 2.5 times the price just to get to work. That's what you call war tax, you know, and when oil and energy goes up like that, it also trickles down to groceries. It trickles down to basic goods, even services. And 85% of the U.S. economy, I believe, is services. So, you know, you're seeing, if you pay attention, everything is going up in price. Slowly but surely, everything is going up in price. But anyways, I spent 80 today to fill my tank. Oh my goodness. Yeah, filling my full tank is like 75, and it should be way less than that. So
jury deliberations are now underway in the murder trial of Lindsay Clancy, and these 12 jurors have not only a heavy choice in front of them, but a somewhat complicated one. You see, the verdict form in this case looks something like this. 5 options for each of the 3 children who were killed. And if the jury approaches this like the judges instructed them, the first big question they're going to have to answer is Clancy's mental state. Was she in a position, because of this postpartum psychosis, that she couldn't really tell the difference between right and wrong, that she couldn't follow the law? If they believe that, they could find her not guilty by lack of criminal responsibility, and that would result in her being sent to a psychiatric facility for an indefinite period of time, though she could be released if her mental health improves and if she's deemed not a threat to the community. But if jurors believe that prosecutors successfully proved that Clancy was not suffering from that severe mental illness, they move on to this next question about whether or not she should be held criminally responsible. The jury has a few options here. They could find her guilty of first-degree murder, second-degree murder, or manslaughter, or acquit her entirely. If the jury believes that she intentionally and with malice killed her children, she'd be found guilty of one of those 2 murder charges. If the jury believes she acted with premeditation, if she acted with cruelty, that would be first-degree murder. That means she spends the rest of her life in a prison with no possibility of parole. If they don't believe there was premeditation or cruelty, then it'd be second-degree murder, meaning that she'd spend the rest of her life in prison, though there would be a possibility of parole. The last option is manslaughter. In this case, the jury could conclude, for example, that Clancy wasn't suffering from postpartum psychosis, but that she was impaired, perhaps because of her postpartum condition, because of all the medications she was on. The penalty for manslaughter is a 20-year prison sentence, though it could be less. The final option is just a not guilty verdict entirely. That would mean she'd be acquitted on all charges, and she wouldn't be sent to a state psychiatric facility. I'm Peter Haralambous with ABC News.
So, yeah, you gotta love that. Let's see what I have here. Okay, so Hassan Piker is on stage mocking Charlie Kirk's assassination. That's so loud. Hang on. So obviously mocking him, okay? And by the way, this is just like really cringe. But obviously mocking him. And I guess Hassan Piker is catching a lot of flack. I read this out of the Washington Post yesterday. A lot of leftists are slowly distancing themselves from him. But I've said this many times. Hassan Piker is like an evil, deranged psycho. And every time I say that, people are like, oh, you're not causing for unity. This dude would never ally with anybody from the right. Even Joe Rogan is too far right for him. So
you may not have heard of left-wing streamer Hassan Piker until this year when Democratic Michigan Senate candidate Abdul El-Sayed began campaigning with him. Just a reminder, Piker has excused sexual violence from Hamas terrorists. Now, the controversial...
Is that true? Is that true?
Controversial relationship between the two entered new territory this week after Piker said this.
If Jews in America keep putting this idea out there that they are singularly invested in Israel, eventually someone's going to come around and take action, not against the state of Israel, mind you, but against American Jews.
Well, Piker made that comment that American Jews who support Israel are responsible.
Isn't it so funny? Isn't it so funny that Hassan Piker calls people like Sneako and Myron and Nick and others anti-Semites? And now he's being called an anti-Semite by left-wing media outlets.
Responsible.
It's just hilarious. It's exactly what he deserves.
For actions taken against them.
Trying to moral police and browbeat his way through the right. You're anti, I don't like when the right talks about Israel because they're too anti-Semitic about it. Well, you're getting the same treatment, dickhead.
A picture of a Jewish Michigan state legislator was prominently displayed. That spurred this statement from Democratic Michigan Congresswoman Hillary Scholten. Piker is a hack who thrives on hate, shock, and awe because he lacks substance.
Okay, let's see what she said actually. Piker is a hack who thrives on hate, shock, and awe because he lacks substance. It's dangerous for everyone. We should all be calling out this disgusting rhetoric so it loses its grip on our politics once and for all. That's so funny. Because, it seemed like and maybe I was wrong. I was telling people the establishment Democrats may have to bend the knee for the DSA, Democratic Socialists of America. However, it seems like, at this point, they're trying to defy this anti-Israel rhetoric. And it's because that's where the money is, but it's so good to just see like Hassan Piker attack. Because this is what this dude makes a career of doing. He makes it his mission to ban people. I think he banned Sneako on Twitch. And somebody's like, please get through to Sneako. Yo, this dude hates you. And he's going to say, oh, here you go with the right-left paradigm, the Matrix shit. This nigga wants you dead, probably. Didn't you go to a DSA rally and they called you a Nazi? Didn't you go to a DSA rally and they all condemned you? Sneako, my nigga, come back home, bro. I'm not saying be far right. I'm not saying, but let's not do the DSA left-wing tap dancing. This is silly. It says I'm tap dancing for the whites. You're tap dancing for Hassan Piker, and Hassan Piker calls you a Nazi. I think that's worse. So we got to recognize how vile and evil this guy is. This guy has said some grotesque things. I'm going to go through this compilation right now. Some of the things are taken out of context, but no doubt about it, Hassan Piker has said some grotesque, disgusting things. And he's deranged. I've watched him have debates where he says that all profit is evil. This guy is like a leftist, socialist, Marxist to a degree you wouldn't even believe. This guy hates millionaires, billionaires. This guy hates people who have money. Mind you, by the way, I guarantee you he's a millionaire. Charlie Kirk asked him on stage one time. By the way, matchup from hell, Charlie Kirk versus Hassan Piker. Just kill me. Charlie Kirk asked him one time on stage. He was like, how much money do you make? He said $60K a year. Okay. And that's what he has to do. He has to live on that hill. He has to lie about that. Because if he was ever honest about how much money he made, he'd be alienating himself from his own mission, cause, and most importantly, his audience that pays him. So no doubt about it, he's got political motion. No doubt about it, he's got a name. But He's a piece of shit. His views are backwards. And by the way, he has no backbone. If he had any sort of backbone, he would have recognized Tucker Carlson is trying to unite with him, and Sneako is trying to unite with him, and everybody else who's kind of become a vague centrist at this point. He would have tried to hold their hands, but he won't, because he's beholden to his audience. And his audience is filled with people that are just as crazy as him. They're just not secretive about it. You know, the people who watch Hassan Piker are not normal. They're anarchists. They're Antifa. These are the same people that burned buildings down in 2020. These are the same people that want gay legislation. These are the same, and by the way, when I say gay legislation, I mean in the classroom. You know, teaching kids perverted things. The people he's supporting are going to vote for these things. And people say, but the AIPAC money, they don't take the AIPAC money. You're a fucking idiot. You're a fucking idiot. Because somebody doesn't take AIPAC money, that means we have to take all the bad legislation and with it and become a one-issue voter just for them to win and walk it back because they're going to need money somehow anyways? Look where not taking AIPAC money is getting them. You're getting attacked on CNN. By the way, CNN, the same outlet, I know it's owned by Barry Weiss at this point, but the same outlet that does coverage in the West Bank of Israeli settlers tying up Palestinians and tying up their genitals and beating them nearly to death. That's the same outlet that's calling out Hassan Piker for being an anti-Semite. So you think the left is down with the cause. You think the left is base. The left is nothing but a mere paper tiger. They're displaying a mirage right now. Anything that the left could be potentially blamed of, they throw Israel in the way of it. That's what they're doing. But, you know, the whole like, oh, you know, maybe Hassan says this and that, but he's right about Israel. Everybody's fucking right about Israel. Everybody's right about Israel. Who's not right about Israel? You know, the bar is in hell. The bar is on the floor if all we're expecting people to do is be right about Israel. So what? Abdul El-Sayed can be right about unconditional support for Israel needing to stop, but everything else is terrible and we just roll with it? Fuck that. Hello, I live in America. I have a family here. I don't have kids, but I have family here. I have people I love here. I don't want this country to be destroyed. I fucking live here. We reap the benefits of this nation. We ought to keep the legislation the way it should be so we can continue to reap the benefits of this nation and can be a fruitful, prosperous one. If we for a moment forget that blessing upon us and we try and change everything because people want socialism and mass amnesty for immigrants at the sake of maybe pulling back a little bit of Israeli control or pulling back a little bit of Israeli support, exactly what happens. Israel still remains the only nuclear power in the Middle East, and they'll bully the shit out of everybody. And on top of that, we're going to have kids learning about gay sex. Where's the benefit in that? The borders will be open. ICE will be no longer. Police are going to make no money. There's going to be police shortages. Could you imagine the crime? Could you imagine the prisoners being released? That's what Daria Liza in New York's Congressional 13th, she's running for in the general election in November. That's what she's saying. And she's going to win, by the way, probably in a landslide. So it's like, bro, you know, we got to lock in. We got to lock in. Hassan Piker is actually a deranged person. He's not okay. He plays it well. He wears his little suits. He goes out in public and he makes it seem like he's polished. He's a psycho. And he's also a dumbass. He doesn't know what he's talking about. So, you know. He's got a big audience. He's got motion, but he's also he's a deranged lunatic.
Up. No. Dark. America deserved 9/11, dude. Fuck it. I'm saying it. We fuck.
And by the way, make no mistake. My hate for Hassan, my dislike for this guy, doesn't come from the same place that other Trump shills find their hate from him to come from. You know what I mean? It doesn't come from the same place. And it also doesn't come from the same place that all of the Israeli firsters find their hate to come from. It's from a different place. And as I've stated earlier, his economic goals, his economic policy for this country is destructive.
Fucking totally brought it on.
And he's hateful. You know, he's hateful. In his rhetoric, the things he spews, he's hateful.
On ourselves, dude. Holy shit.
Every type of armed resistance against both the settlers and also the Israeli occupying force in the West Bank. Doesn't matter if it's your favorite podcasters like Wife that participate in these raids, the violence that the Palestinians engage in an act of resistance against this illegal occupying force is literally legal, definitionally legal. If you cared about Medicare fraud or...
All right, that definitely wasn't a call to kill Ethan Klein's wife. They're just, and this is what I'm saying, I'm fair.
In an act of resistance against this illegal occupying force is literally legal, definitionally legal. If you cared about Medicare fraud or Medicaid fraud, you would kill Rick Scott, okay? The moment is clear. You got to sick like the ACP guys on him, okay? That's it. You got to get one of those like Dink type motherfuckers to just like eat his ass alive, you know?
874 Bellevue
He's effectively an ACP guy himself.
Drive, and I'm gonna kill you with my AR-15. Like, that's the type of messages they were leaving in this dude's office, and he's resigning. So I think that people are a lot more...
So there's we don't need to watch all this, but there's a video of, we can watch that, but he was next to El Sayed in one of these videos. Let's see if I have it here. No, I don't. That's fine. So we could watch this.
Both love freedom, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
You want to abolish ICE? Who's going to deport the criminal aliens?
Long before we ever had ICE.
Let's watch this in full. I don't want any cuts. Make things look wrong or out of context. I want to be fair here, so let's watch this in full.
Michigan Senate candidate Abdul El Sayed joins us now. How you doing, Abdul?
I'm good, Jesse. I appreciate the opportunity for a good, wholesome conversation, and I just want to start where we agree. We both played football and lacrosse. We both love America. We both love freedom, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Absolutely. We'll see how much we agree on. I know I don't agree with you on this. You want to abolish ICE. Who's going to deport the criminal aliens from the country?
Well, you and I both know that long before we ever had ICE, we had INS. We were able to enforce our immigration policies without shooting people in the face and the back of the head. And we just celebrated our 250th anniversary. That was an anniversary of throwing away tyranny. Now, to bring that tyranny back under the guise of the U.S. government itself.
Okay, so it's just very simple. If you want to deport illegals from the country, if you want to deport undocumented illegal aliens from the country, it's unfortunately going to, and I say this, it's unfortunate, it sometimes requires violence and force because people are just not going to get on a plane and up and go and leave willfully. Right? So it's just so funny when people talk about the brutality of ICE. If Trump is telling them they've got to deport people and people aren't listening, what do you think would logically follow? You know, no one can think anymore.
That seems to me to be...
It's not to these two, it's just in general.
Consistent with the freedom you and I both love.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a dodge, Abdul. They did the same thing
as
as ICE back then, INS. Do you know how many illegal aliens are in the country
shoot
now?
People in the face and the back of the head.
Do you know how many illegal aliens are in the country now?
We had, no, I mean, to your point, Jesse, let me just answer the question. To your point,
how many do we have?
Fewer when we had INS. To your answer, we had
exactly.
far fewer when we had INS. So arguably,
we now have,
INS worked a lot better.
Abdul, listen, we had twice as many illegals now when we had INS.
So to your argument,
you have to have the manpower to do it.
If you want to do that correlation, we have ICE now, and we have far, far more undocumented people. So ICE is clearly not working. It's just shooting like American citizens in the face and the back of the head. So
well,
if you're okay
illegals
with that,
are shooting people in the face too.
Agree to disagree.
Abdul, you got a guy in Michigan.
So are American citizens.
You got a guy.
Think, look,
let me just say something.
We have a responsibility
Okay,
to get back to the conversation about the broader issues.
Okay.
He's good. Look, and I don't agree with him. I don't like him. He's good. He knows how to respond to questions. Look, you can not like somebody's politics and recognize they're kind of good at politics. He knows how to go around questions.
Well, you cut me off, Jesse.
Let's see. Albo Ace says, you know what, stupid Muslims who are left-leaning, it's a complete contradiction, and I think Sneako fits into that mold well. It's its true self. You know, look, I'm not going to shit on Sneako. Look, if you're a left-leaning Muslim, that's fine. Let me make something very clear. If you're a Muslim and you're a Democrat, all right, whatever. Like, that's fine, and that exists. You know, people are entitled to have their own opinions. Do I think Muslims should be right wing? Yeah, I think that makes more sense. But, you know, if a Muslim happens to be left leaning on economics, and honestly, left leaning economics sound good. You know, universal healthcare. Healthcare is pretty tough right now in the US, so that sounds good. I'm not saying I agree with it. But everything else, they're shit. The problem I have is people are now jumping to the side of the left when they were previously on the right, because the left is in some ways defying Israel in a way that's not significant at all. And why is it not significant? Because they won't take any AIPAC money. Yeah, I guess that's a big deal in the face of the fact that all the Republican candidates are taking AIPAC money. But it's just a matter of time until everybody starts to resist AIPAC. It's a matter of time until we get candidates out of the right wing who resist AIPAC. If James Fishback ran in Florida's 6th congressional district instead of Dan Bilzerian, and he campaigned that hard in that district, he probably would have won. You know, it's a statewide race. That's why he was guaranteed to lose. Florida's a state of 23 million people, you know, versus that small district. So there is a way the right wingers can resist AIPAC money as well, and it's underway. And every time me and Sneako have this debate, I say it's not worth it to capitulate on just resisting AIPAC money when ultimately these people want destruction for the country. What does that do? What does that do? You know, but I don't have a problem with somebody who's left-leaning. You know what I mean? If you're a Democrat, you're a Democrat. If you're left-leaning, you're left-leaning, whatever. That's your prerogative. However, if you're falling for this mirage, if you're falling for this trick where the left is scapegoating everything with Israel, then you're falling for it. You're being dumb. That's my point. And a lot of Muslims are not a lot, but some seem to be shaky in that respect. So that's like my real issue. Boys, by the way, thank you for the 5. But you know what I mean?
And you said we're going to have a good conversation, so I'd like to do that. I just want to answer the point.
And it's always left and right is not real until it's time to fucking vote. I love that so much. Left and right is not real. How does power work then? Left and right is not real. We all need to unite. That's not how the country works. If that's how the country could potentially work, I guess I jump on that train too. That's not how things work. Like they say that, and then, you know, you got to pick a side when it's time to pick a side if you want to vote, right? Whether that's in your local congressional district, whether that's for midterms, whether that's for the president, you have to pick a side. And either side has consistent patterns in the way they enact legislation, the way they think, their tendencies. Like, yeah, there's 2 parties, bro. Relax. You know, I say, yeah, there is a right and a left, and then everybody's like, oh, you're on Epstein's island. Like, fuck you. You're a fucking retard.
When I travel the state, and I have traveled my state, more people are asking me about how they're going to afford their gas and groceries. They're not asking me about immigration.
Well,
now,
they also don't want to get molested. Abdul, you got a guy here from Southeast Asia, molested a kid. ICE just picked him up. You want that guy to stay in Michigan?
I'm glad that guy got picked up, but that's a different thing than saying that INS would not have picked him up. Jesse, you're too smart for this.
It's a bureaucratic game you're playing, and that's a dodge.
You point to him, you say,
you need guys to get these guys out of the country.
And therefore, ICE, we need ICE. I'm just saying, look, playing by your own rules. When we had INS, we had fewer people doing the things that you're talking about.
That's because Biden didn't blow open the border back then.
When we had that.
All right, that's because Biden didn't blow open the border back then.
And that's not an ICE question. That's a CBP question.
No,
Jesse,
you guys let in a ton of people, and we got to get them out, and we'll take the guys out the way we need to take them out. Green New Deal, you back that up. Do you drive an electric car?
I drive a plug-in hybrid made right in the United States. The bigger question about cars, though, is why the president just started a trade war or escalated a trade war.
He's going to bring up Canada.
With Canada. It's about to make all of our cars, especially the internal combustion engine cars, so much more expensive.
You want to get rid of the internal combustion engine?
No, I don't. Who told you that?
That's what the Green New Deal says.
My dad came to America to design internal combustion engines. No, that's not what the Green New Deal says.
Phase out fossil fuels.
Build renewable energy opportunities.
That's where it's headed.
Look, I'm not going to defend the Green New Deal. What I'm telling you, though, is that we could make a whole lot more
You're on the record as backing the Green New Deal, Abdul.
Look, I'm just telling you this. Are you opposed to the idea that we could reduce energy costs and create jobs in Michigan?
Absolutely, but I don't want windmills in Lake Michigan.
So you're absolutely opposed to that?
Yeah, I don't want to put windmills in Lake Michigan.
You'd rather have windmills.
I don't think the people in Michigan want that, Abdul.
If
you're running on that, that's not going to go over too well.
We have a pipeline. No. I mean, Jesse, look, we can have a conversation if you want to. If you want to keep cutting me off, we could keep doing that too. But you told me we're going to have a good conversation. I just want to talk about something.
Go ahead.
Right now, we have an oil pipeline in the Great Lakes. If that oil pipeline were to burst, the consequences for our Great Lakes would be disastrous. Now, you're telling me that you'd rather have a situation where that happened than a windmill? That really is so offensive to you?
No.
Now, those windmills are good.
I'm saying I don't want to get rid of fossil fuels, and that's what the Green New Deal does. Let's move on. You want to soak the rich. Look, Abdul, because this isn't a podcast. I got to sell ads in the breaks. You want to soak the rich. Let's listen to what you said about the taxes. Run it.
I also think we got to start taxing wealth for people who have over $100 million. I mean, at that point, like, what even are you going to do with more money?
What are you going to do with more money? I mean, whatever I want.
I mean, Jesse, I don't know how much you make. Look,
not $1 billion.
But I think I'd rather have. Well, yeah, look, so that's exactly it, right? The question ultimately is, do you want to drive on good roads, or would you rather have a billionaire make a second billion? That's what Mike Rogers wants. That's what Donald Trump wants. Apparently, that's what you want. I think the people in Michigan want something different. They want good roads and good schools.
So you're saying Beyonce, who just became a billionaire, she has to break you off something every year? She has to pay the politicians?
It's not me. It's the American public.
You're
Beyonce,
the one that wants the money.
Happy to be able to contribute back to the public schools that she went to. I think she'd be happy to invest in good roads in her community. I think she'd be happy to pay a little bit more so that everybody had a little bit more.
You're reaching a little deep into the pockets,
to be defending billionaires from your channel.
And this is all this is going to sound crazy. You know whose fault this is? This is Trump's fault. Because the issues that Jesse raises are legitimate and they're real. But they take fundamental economic understanding. You get what I'm saying? If you don't understand that, then they may not seem as important. Whereas what Al-Sayed is saying seems like the pressing matter at the moment, as I speak to you now. I want to make things affordable. I want to give Americans health care. That's kind of remarkable. Does that all work? No. Obviously, I wouldn't vote for that because I understand it doesn't work, but that's me. You get what I'm saying? So, but how does this go back to Trump, as I was saying? Because Trump is damaging the economy with this economic war he's imposing upon everybody. And he's trying to save face with this America First policy for midterms. And one could make the argument that the trade war against Canada actually may benefit the U.S. Look, 70% of Canadian exports go to the United States. They need us. But there's a strong political will in Canada as well to resist the U.S. because there's this idea that Trump wants to take over Canada. And so they've charged up and voted for Dave Carney to withhold, or rather uphold, the sovereignty of Canada. That's the idea. Canadians hate Trump. So with respect to tariffs and things like that, I'm in favor of them because I think they do benefit the United States long term. I don't think the costs are actually always passed off to the consumer. However, with this trade war with Canada, if it actually happens, we'll see. If it really takes shape, could make things temporarily more expensive. But could that motivate U.S. production? In the greater scheme of things, the answer is potentially. Right? And Canada is trying to scramble right now and find other trading partners. Why? Canada, in response to the U.S. 50% tariffs, sorry, not sanctions, did I say sanctions? Tariffs. In response to the 50% U.S. tariffs, Canada is searching for other partners to trade with and create more free trade relations because they need it. They need to replace that. That's 72%. Right? And it's a lot of steel, it's a lot of aluminum, it's a lot of cars. They need to give that to somebody. So, and they can't give it to us for the rate that we're asking for because there's a political will not to do it. And so what does that tell you? Canada actually does need us. So I'm not so against Trump kind of flexing his muscles there. I just think the timing is shallow. I don't like the timing because it's right ahead of midterms. So to me, it's another bullshit ruse. I don't think it's really going to last. But in regards to what they're saying, yeah, this is what this guy and all the other DSA candidates want. And by the way, he's not a part of the DSA technically. He's allegedly a capitalist, but he's a very loose capitalist who still believes in taxing millionaires, whatever that means. But that doesn't work. You can't take other people's money and give it to everybody else. We already fucking do that. You know, the United States is one of the countries that does that. In our mandatory spending, how much of it is a liabilities? Almost a good, I think it's like 50%, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't looked at those numbers in a while. And all of our spending for the budget, so much of it is on liabilities and Social Security. We got to fucking take everybody's money too and give it to broke immigrants. Unbelievable.
See, that's a crazy thing. I thought you were for, I'm just saying, look, at the end of the day, I thought you were for the everyday man. Like, if you're for billionaires more than you're for every other person, well, you and I are just going to disagree.
No, I just think I have the right to the fruits of my own labor. That's America. It's not communist, what you're talking about.
No, the problem with it, Jesse,
Let me ask you
is
about socialized health care.
Billionaires don't make money. And let me just answer the question.
Sure.
No, let me go back to that.
Go ahead.
Billionaires don't make their money off of their labor. That, I think, is where you head off. Billionaires that make their money off their money. So if you have $1 billion, your billion makes another 100 million. That's not the fruits of your labor. That's just the fruits of your money making money. I think it's okay. Like, if we tax you at 7%, you're still gonna make what, a cool $30 million off your.
What do you want to do with that money, though? That's the real question. You know, wrongfully you could argue he's taking the money. But what does he want to do with that money? You want to destroy ICE, not pay them. Likely a lot of your voters don't want to fund the police the way we fund the police now, and we don't pay police enough anyways, and they're the ones who are responsible for law and order. Okay, you tax all that money. What does he want to do with it?
$1 billion, I think it's okay. They're going to be okay, Jesse.
Yeah, I just don't like the idea of politicians like you capping how much money people make in America. That's just me. We can have the voters in Michigan decide. You say you want socialized health care. Abdul, how much is that going to cost?
Hopefully he says this is the reason here.
It's going to cost the average Michigander a whole lot less than they pay right now. But I'm just going to tell you.
No, but what's the price tag of the program?
Who voted to raise prescription drug prices 19 times, right? And so I'm just saying I want to bring your costs down. The price of the program is going to be substantially less for an everyday person who's out here who can't afford their health care and worried about losing their health care with their job.
Well, give me the total number.
Look, while you're out here trying to talk about the broader national budget, I'm a lot more interested in the everyday budgets that Michiganders are thinking about. And that's exactly the budget that Donald Trump and Mike Rogers are blowing up right now.
Well,
I just don't see why you're so on the side of the billionaires, Jesse, rather than on the side of everyday Michiganders.
No, because I don't want you guys to blow the country up. Do you know how much the federal budget is now?
No, neither do I. Here's exactly
What's the federal budget?
You guys want to, right? Pete Hegseth, who used to work
answer
for
the
your
question. Do you know what the federal budget is?
To raise. No. I just want to talk about this. Look, you want to talk about budgets? I'm happy to do that. The guy who used to work on your channel, I think he was like the 6th host on the 5. He wanted to raise our military budget to $1.5 trillion, and you don't seem to be upset about that. What? So we could fight a war we don't know how to get out of? To raise our gas prices $5 a gallon?
Hey, cooked them there.
Doesn't make sense to me, Jesse. We want to talk about the things that we actually should spend on. To me, that's
I have a feeling, Abdul, you don't even know how much money the government spends every year. Do you know?
Look, the question, Jesse, to me
all right,
is,
so you don't know. Let me tell you what it is. It's $7 trillion a year. And your plan
Jesse,
to take over the healthcare system is $4 trillion.
And here's the problem with it. So to exactly your point,
I mean,
do you know what
I'm not very good at math. I don't think you're very good at math either, but go ahead.
Clearly you don't. And you don't seem to care. But I don't think most Americans want to spend that much money on military escapades so that the folks stranded on the USS Abraham Lincoln can't even get a sausage for breakfast. I just think that we could do.
Yeah, but spending is that high under every administration.
Do a lot better with our money, Jesse, and I think that's where you and I tend to disagree.
That's why you realize these socialists will really change the way the country looks, because they won't even do what Biden was doing. And Biden opened the border to 10 million people. They're going to go further than that, you know. But military spending is always high, and it needs to stay that high.
I just disagree.
If the U.S. is to remain in the powerful position it's in, the U.S. military budget has to be that high.
Agrees with you.
I think if you spend $4 trillion, everything else is going to get really expensive. You're going to look back at Bidenflation, and you're going to wish you were back there. But you brought up foreign policy.
You want to talk about inflation? I'd be happy to talk about inflation. Jesse, you actually said the word. Because everywhere I go in Michigan, people are talking about the fact that they've never had to worry as much about life being as unaffordable as they say right now. Now, I get it. Donald Trump likes to blame everything on his predecessor. But
really quick, I got some super chats. I'll just quickly read these as we go through this video. Let's see. Tony the Pony says, what are your thoughts on the ICE protests of Preddy and Renee Good? I agree with Myron, said that it was self-defense. Sucks that they died, though. Rest in peace. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but ICE protests are dumb. Most protests are fucking stupid. But the ICE protests are especially dumb. Albo Ace, thank you for the 5. Albo Ace says, although I don't think you can become an ethical billionaire being ethical, I still don't believe they need to give a fat percent of their money to the average citizen/immigrant, etc., just because they make more. Yeah, it doesn't make sense because billionaires can still benefit the economy as well. Fucking duh. That's why we don't allow China to bring any fucking cars over here. So Tesla can do well. So Elon Musk, we need American billionaires. That creates jobs here, by the way. So tariffs work. This is what I'm saying. Tariffs can be a plausible reality or a plausible cause to create a reality in which we motivate American production and make more millionaires and billionaires. You don't incentivize that when you say no tariffs and tax the rich. The U.S. will become weaker inevitably. And in regards to being an ethical billionaire, yeah, it's impossible. All billionaires are evil in some way. But I don't sit here and moral police and browbeat billionaires like these liberals and these people on the left. It's so gay and annoying and senseless. It gets us nowhere. Obviously, all billionaires and even multi-millionaires or people in that range, you know, to earn that kind of wealth, you got to undercut some people. Let's just say that at the least.
Let's be clear. This is Donald Trump's economy right now. And he's about to make everything so much worse because he's in a...
Sneako, thank you for the 5 gifted, my friend. Sneako's in here. The left. Here we go. Are you live? No, you just hopped off. Now, word. Sneako, you know there's a left and right. Okay, you know there is. Because the other day you were saying the left, the right when you were talking about Hassan Piker and shit. I saw you on stream. So you mention it when it benefits you. But look, we're watching a good debate right now. This is a good debate. Actually, Sneako, I'm giving El Sayed some credit. If you were watching, I called him very smart.
Vanity war with the Prime Minister of Canada. And look, like, I'm in Michigan, and you're from New York, right? So you know Canadians, man. They're the only people I know who apologized before they even did his thing. So now they're raising the tariff to 50%. What's that going to do to inflation?
Yeah, what is spending $4 trillion going to do? I think it's going to make it a lot worse. But you brought up the war. Are you glad the Ayatollah is dead?
Yeah, I mean, look, he was a terrible person, but that's beyond the point. The bigger question is, should we have gone to war in the first place?
He lost a lot of people by saying this, by the way. He lost a lot of people by saying he's glad the Ayatollah is dead, or at least saying, yeah. And that's the problem, you know, he has to kind of straddle the line. He doesn't want to be alienated from the establishment Democrats, but at the same time, he wants to earn the favorability of a lot of the DSA voting base, and he's going to struggle with that. So, you know, he caught a lot of heat on X. I noticed on X a lot of people were upset about that, calling him an Israeli shill. But, you know, he's anti-war, and that's what really matters. I won't be cheap like the rest of them.
Look, I just want to be clear with you, right? I mean, I'm never going to defend the Iranian regime, but I am going to defend the idea that we probably shouldn't be fighting wars we don't know how to get out of. Oopsie, you go to war, and you tell us...
Sneako says W. Epstein, L the left. Very good, Sneako. Very good. Yo, by the way, though, on an off note, I hope you're doing well, bro. I hope everything is going well, inshallah. And things are going good for you. I see you got no AC. You better get out of that apartment, bro. That's crazy. That's crazy. Shout out to Sneako, though, in the chat. Shout out to Sneako. The left and the right. Yeah, there's a left and a right, Sneako. Newsflash, bro. Not sure where you've been.
That it's going to be a special military operation. That was in February. We're now in September almost, and we're still fighting the special military operation. I mean, it's not working for us, Jesse.
We're not really
this is
fighting
exactly
it.
what
It's a
happens when you've got a dunce
blockade.
in the White House who doesn't know what he's doing.
So you'd go back in time, you'd give them back their nuke program, you'd give them back their Air Force, their Navy.
No, I'd go
Because the nuke program's buried under a mountain of rubble.
And we actually had nuclear containment. Now, Jesse, you like to, I mean, look, I understand selective memory about history, but we had a JCPOA that was well negotiated, that actually had nuclear non-proliferation far more securely than what we have right now after having gone to war for the better part of 6 months.
Yeah, I like the fact that the nuke program's buried under a mountain of rubble. They can't even get access to it, but that's me.
That's not true. They can get access to it, and they likely already have. And the JCPOA was one of the only positive things Obama did. Everybody knows Obama's foreign policy was terrible, but the JCPOA was one of the most remarkable things he did in the Middle East. And Trump reversed that by greenlighting the IRGC in 2017 and 18 and killing Qasem Soleimani in 2020. So, Sneako says, want to come on the Central Asia tour. When are you going? Text me. I got to, by the way, Sneako, you know, I'm still in the Matrix, bro. I'm still a normie. So if you have dates, let me know, and I'll try to take that time off. Where are you going exactly? What countries? It'd be very fun. I would love to.
I think we'll figure it out. The thing
just depends how long and when. Pause.
You said about
so let's just stop there. So
Sure.
Jesse, wait. I understand you're not good at math. I get that. I'll give you that. But science, we gotta talk about science, okay?
Yeah.
You understand that nuclear material doesn't just go away because you buried it under a mountain of rubble. You understand they can still go back and bury it out, right?
Yeah,
you
we're
get
watching
that.
it from Space
Right.
Force.
So
and anybody
we're not any
that
more
goes
secure
near it,
than we were back then.
Okay, let's move on. You said getting rid of Sharia law was white supremacy. Let's roll the tape. Go.
Wait, what?
I don't have to tell you that the same exact forces that drove native
Bro lost some weight. He was huge. What the hell?
peoples from their land 2 centuries ago, destroyed Black Wall Street a century ago, bombed a building decades ago, and tried to ban Sharia law not a decade ago, that those forces are alive and well today.
So
wait, why did he say? He didn't say Sharia. He said Sharia. Yo, he's cleaned up.
getting rid of Sharia laws, white supremacy. Can you explain that one?
Do you know what canon law is? Jesse, I assume you're Christian, right?
Yeah, tell me.
All right, so canon law is the name for Christian law. I don't begrudge you your right to practice your faith as you choose. I don't know why the idea that I could practice my faith as I choose is a problem. Nobody is...
Oh, Dagestan, Pakistan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan. Wow, that's going to be lit. I'd love to go to Dagestan. Dagestan would be lit, I'm not going to lie. Hold on. Yo, text me the dates, or do you not have them yet? What month is this going to happen in? Dagestan, Pakistan. I really want to go to Kyrgyzstan, too. That's a country I really want to visit. Yes, text me, or I'll text you after stream, or I'll call you. Sagno Sprite says, can you and Sneako come to the Bay Area? I don't know. That's up to Sneako. I don't know if Sneako has any interest in going over there. Tony the Pony says, can tariffs work if the next administration reverses it? I'm not sure what you mean by that. Like, will they be effective if the next administration reverses it? Yeah, they'll be effective for now, but yeah, they won't be much promise unless they work. Biden had tariffs. Biden continued a bunch of tariffs that Trump had from 2017 and 18. In 2020, a lot of people don't know that. Biden continued a lot of tariffs.
Trying to push Sharia law on anyone else, just like I hope nobody is trying to push canon law on anybody else, because we live in an America where you should have the freedom of your religion. So the idea that you have somebody like Tommy Tuberville, right, who, you know, barely was good at coaching football, is out here trying to ban Sharia law when there's less than 1% of the Muslim community in America, as if somehow Muslims are out here trying to push Sharia law.
Yeah, that's total Fox News slop. Sharia law, Sharia law. No one's pushing for Sharia law literally anywhere.
That seems to me to be...
That's typical Fox boomer slop. Jesse Waters is eating that shit up like a retard.
Be deliberately targeting the Muslim community because they're different. And I'm just saying that, like, I have no issue with people practicing their faith. In fact, I would never want somebody to push their faith on me, and I would never want to push my faith on somebody else.
Good, because no one wants you to get rid of your religion.
And so the idea...
No one wants that.
but when people preemptively go out there and start preemptively passing laws to ban something that's not happening, what you're trying.
After 9/11 to early October. Okay, got it. After 9/11 to early October. After 9/11 is such an interesting time to choose. Okay, say no more. Say no more, Sneako. Khalas, we should make it happen.
Trying to do is target a very.
Ryad, Abdul is evil. He to left. Jesse Waters is a Christ-pilled Republican. Very good, Sneako. Very good.
Small community because they're different, and this operates. I mean, look, I'm just going to say.
Why are you also typing in all caps?
There's statistical evidence that the president
Sharia
and the vice
law in
president
Michigan is kind of scary.
Simply
people
as a
don't
function
go
of my
for
faith.
that. You know, it's like men
Nobody's
aren't
trying to
equal
push it on
from
anybody,
women.
but
It's like
I just
physical
think you
punishments.
like to say the word. Look, Jesse.
Hey, bro, kind of base though. Wouldn't the U.S. benefit from these Lindsay Clancy women being shut the fuck up? I mean, let's get real. Let's get real.
Look,
people don't
like
like
to
that
say
in
the
Michigan.
word
I'm just saying,
because it
I don't
seems
think
really,
that's a good
really foreign
position.
and scary. Nobody's pushing it. No, but Jesse, nobody's pushing it. You know what the issue is in America, in Michigan?
What?
The issue that people are worried about is not.
Abdul was definitely more of a hardliner. Like at that speech for Council of American Islamic Relations, he definitely was a little bit more of a hardliner than he is now. Like I said, he's polished his look. He's polished his rhetoric.
That somehow somebody's going to come and push Sharia law on them. The issue in Michigan is people are worried about how they're going to afford their gas. The issue in Michigan is how am I going to see a doctor when I get sick? How am I going to keep my job? You're out here, honestly, you guys love to play this culture war game where you use these words that sound really foreign to avoid actually having to talk about.
Well, the unemployment rate is low, so I'm not sure what he means by that.
The issues that everyday people like to talk about. Now, look, Mike Rogers is the guy I'm running against for U.S. Senate, and I know you've had him on your show.
This is why this GOP is so fucked. They've made Democratic talking points sound so powerful and good. Like, hey, you don't want to pay a war tax at the pump. Hey, you don't want to pay for all of these unnecessary expenses as a result of the global energy crisis. We'll stop the war in Iran. Vote for us. You know, that will quickly turn people into one-issue voters. So, yeah, this GOP destroyed any potentiality of the right wing looking like they have promise in 2028. It's just true. That's why I think 2029 is going to be a blue wave.
Maybe he answers questions. I don't know if he does.
I've actually
Maybe he goes
never
on
had him
Newsmax
on.
only, but look, you haven't. So
I see. Jesse Waters, Sharia law is not compatible with Christ-pilled right-wing American values. Yeah, very, very funny, Sneako. Let's see.
He's ducked.
I see somebody in the chat talking about what Fresh said last night. Yeah, that was I saw that. I don't know what the hell got into him. Okay, I'm not gonna watch that clip.
Keeping your show too because he's ducking. Look, can we all agree? Like,
I haven't
Jesse,
invited
you and I
him
are
on.
going to have a debate, right? Can we all agree that Mike Rogers is a beta? Can we all agree with that?
I haven't even had
Dude
him
won't
on.
even come on your show because he's afraid of getting grilled.
I will have him on.
That guy,
and I'm sure
wants
it'll
to
be
out
great.
here
But
talking
Abdul,
like, Jesse, let me just
can
say,
I back up
he's
for
out
1
here
second?
trying to talk about Mike.
Can I back up for 1 second?
Finish my point. I'll finish. I swear I'll be quick.
Okay, because Mike Rogers isn't here to defend himself.
He thinks he's running against Hassan Piker. Well, maybe then he'll actually come on your show. Maybe I'm doing you a favor then. But the guy's a beta, doesn't like to answer questions, and he dodges every debate.
I don't
I'm pretty
think
sure he's going to dodge you too.
Need
All
Mike
I'm say is
Rogers
this.
on the show, but thanks.
All I'm going to say is this.
Thanks for booking it. You know, I agree. Gas
Mike
prices
Rogers
are
would
too
probably
high.
benefit.
Gas prices are too high. Abdul, pipe
Holy shit! Can one person talk?
down 1 second. Gas prices are too high. Green New Deal's not going to help that. You said that we get to keep our doctor. I've been told that before. We were lied to. So let's move on.
Jesse.
You said here, I want to move on because we do have to hit a break.
No, let me just finish the point.
Please.
You told me you want to say something.
Go ahead.
And I want to just finish my point, okay?
Yeah.
If the only answer that Mike Rogers and Donald Trump and J.D. Vance have to this economy is to point to me and say there are scary words associated with him, I'm just going to tell you those scary words are not raising gas prices or keeping you from seeing your doctor. I'm interested in getting money out of politics, putting money in your pocket, passing Medicare for all. And I think that actually will solve problems in Michigan.
I'm not scared of you,
If you think
Abdul. I
that
just
running
think you're a
against
little
my name
misguided.
or running
That's all.
against my faith is going to fix problems, go ahead.
No, I just played what you said and we talked about it, so we're all good. You also said this, you want to replace the right to bear arms with the right to health care. You don't want to replace the Second Amendment, do you?
Well, look, man, I think more people are more worried about whether or not they can see a doctor than whether or not they can have a gun. I'm just going to put
All right, this dude throws healthcare in the face of like everything. Can you just give a comprehensive answer to what your ideology is? That's why I'm so off put by him, because everything is like, you know, what I'm worried about is healthcare. Like, okay, but he's asking you a direct question about gun legislation. What the fuck? You know what I mean? Like, it's just ridiculous. This is what they do. They kind of throw the important talking points that feed the political appetite in the face of all the questions that actually deserve an answer. Let's see. Fresh is based in red pilled El Rey. Very good. Abdul wants evil communism. We need the right wing and more war. Yeah, Abdul actually does want evil communism. So L socialism and L communism.
Put that out there.
I mean, you're dodging the question. Do you want to replace the Second Amendment?
But he's a capitalist, allegedly. That's what he says.
I'm just saying that more people are more concerned about seeing a doctor. If we had a right to health care in this country, they probably wouldn't. And I think that'd be a pretty good thing, don't you?
I think you dodged the question. And that's a pretty big one in Michigan. But I'll take it as what you said. You
Jesse,
said
look,
Colin Kaepernick.
I'm perfectly fine with people. Let me just finish to answer your point. You said I dodged the question. I'm perfectly okay with people having their hunting rifles. It's an important pastime. I've got family that goes hunting every single year. But don't you think we should have a right to health care? Don't you think that'd be a good thing in America? Can we just say that?
75% of the country likes the health care coverage they have. I don't want to screw that up.
No, 75% of the country wants guaranteed health care through Medicare for all. So maybe you have your facts. I guess I know you guys do alternative facts over here.
We'll find out.
I'll give you that.
We'll find out in November. But that's a Gallup poll. You might not believe it, but
yes, we will.
I'm telling you what it is.
Yes, we will.
You said Colin Kaepernick was a good guy, and you said the NFL was racist. What did you mean by that?
Look, I think for Colin Kaepernick's sake, I think he should have had several more years in the NFL. Now, I think he's a pretty damn good quarterback. I think, unfortunately, he lost a lot of time. But the bigger question right now when it comes to football, look, I know you guys like to...
He messed up here at the end about transgender people. Let's see.
I think I don't like football, but...
He's got to play careful. You know who he has to appease.
I'm happy to line up against anybody who thinks that I don't like football. And I'll just tell you, the bigger issue that we have for football right now is I looked at ticket prices to try and go and see a game with my family. It's astronomical, through the roof. Now, I think football used to be the kind of thing that you could...
Yo, this dude is amazing at dodgy questions, bro. It's actually remarkable. He's truly a politician, huh? I don't know if he's answered one question directly so far.
Joy with people.
It's another dodge, Abdul.
So we want to talk about football. I want to talk about access to football.
I asked you if you thought...
Abdul, you said that football is racist and Colin Kaepernick is a good guy. What do you mean by that? Well, I just want health care.
The NFL is racist because you said the NFL was racist, and now you're talking about ticket prices.
I mean, the NFL is like all black teams with super white rich owners. This shit's funny.
No, I'm just telling you, the NFL is too expensive. The NFL is too...
Everything's too fucking expensive, this fucking watermelon-headed piece of shit. Can you fucking say one good thing? All these Democrats do is bitch and moan.
Too expensive. You don't agree?
All right, so you don't think it's racist anymore?
I get it.
All right, well, I'm glad. You don't think the NFL is racist anymore. That's good.
Most people can't afford that. Bigger issue with the NFL. You want to talk about the NFL. The bigger issue with the NFL is too many people can't afford it. I get you probably can. And I know that you're in New York, so you have like two teams that play in the same place. So you get two options. But I'm just saying that here in Michigan, we got one team.
Okay.
And most people can't afford to watch them in the stadium. And I'd like to make it more affordable.
So you dodged again.
This dude is ridiculous. Everything is affordability, and that's just not everything.
Sex change.
Sneako says, perfect debate displaying how culture wars keep us trapped into left and to right. No, that's not a perfect display. This is a perfect display of somebody who is a far left extremist who is terrified to spew his rhetoric on air because he knows he'll actually expose what he believes, and that will lose him a lot of favorability and highlight him for the extremist that he is. All he wants to say is, I just want to give you health care. I want to take money out of politics. I want to put money in your pockets. But what are his opinions on all the other legislation that are imperative to him actually being voted in or out? How can we make a valid discernment as to whether this guy is legitimate and whether he actually has the benefit of Michigan in his mind or not? It's hard to understand when all he says is, free health care, more money for you, cheap NFL tickets. Okay? That doesn't give me any basis to decide as to whether you're worth voting for or not. So, no, this actually does display the stark difference between the right and the left. Because at least the guy on the left, despite him being a Trump shill and ideologically captured in the fact that he probably supports the Iran war, we at least know what the fuck he thinks. I can't even figure out what Abdul al-Sayed thinks about anything because all he says is free healthcare, money in your pockets. And that doesn't even work because we know socialism doesn't work.
For minors. Do you support that?
Look, you know, I remember having great conversations with my conservative friends about right to try legislation. The idea that the government shouldn't tell you what kind of health care you should have. I just think the government shouldn't tell you what kind of health care you should have. And if you're a minor, it's between
you want to
your
try
doctor
on
and your
kids?
parents. Now, if you disagree with that, if you disagree that healthcare decisions need to be made by a doctor and their parents and a patient, then we think we agree to disagree. But you know, you want to put government inside
So Abdul,
a clinic
you're
or
a doctor,
hospital
right?
selectively. I am.
So you think it's okay?
But Sneako, thanks for the 10. Is this where he messes up about the... Someone says I need to talk to Hasan to learn about socialism. I know more about socialism than you, retard.
Hey, for a parent to slash his kid's thing-a-ling off? You think that's okay?
I mean, do you really want to have this conversation? Are you circumcised?
Yeah, but I mean, that's a
Jesse,
personal question.
Okay,
doctor.
So you probably should want to move on. You probably should want to move on.
Is circumcision's different than castration?
I think it's a problem. It's a problem that you think that you get to decide what happens between a parent, a doctor, and a patient. And I'm just saying that yes, circumcision is surgery on a kid's ding.
What happened to Sharia law? What happened to being a base Muslim? Where'd it go? Yeah, no, that shouldn't be legal, actually. It shouldn't be between the parents. We can't even trust parents because bitches are choking their kids to death. So yeah, it should be illegal. We shouldn't even offer that as a service.
So if you really want to bring that up, you can. I just think you guys are really selective about how you want to talk about these things.
Abdul, Michigan's not going for that. That is sick stuff. Boys playing in girls' sports.
I'm not advocating anything. I'm just saying.
So what about that?
So the question.
Sneako, this is right and left right here. I don't know what you're talking about. This is pretty important.
So again, like Jesse.
Sneako, it's not important until the day you get married, inshallah. You have kids. And your daughter's playing soccer. And some nigga or whatever sport and some man on the opposing high school varsity team megs her and fucking pummels a goal through the net. You be mad then. These things do actually matter.
You have not asked me one time about
But the sex change thing is actually significant. Let me be real.
Issues that people actually care about in Michigan. You don't want to talk about gas prices. You don't want to talk about groceries. You don't want to talk about healthcare. You don't want to talk about this stupid trade war that's about to destroy Michigan's economy.
We spent the whole interview talking about that stuff.
That's destroying, that is destroying our own military. You don't seem to want to talk about any of those things. You want to bring up all this culture war that, you know, I'm not here to fight a culture war.
But this isn't culture war. These are legitimate issues. Okay, forget about the other stuff with Sharia law. What's your opinion on children being able to mutilate their bodies? That's legitimate. That's not culture. That is ideological.
The war, we talked about gas prices and the Green New Deal, okay? If you want to do an interview,
I brought them up every time.
You can do the interview,
you're
okay?
Asking me, like, you're doing the greatest hits, Jesse. Like, I mean, this is, like, you could play this game if you want, but, like, you can keep doing the greatest hits if you want. You told me we were going to come on for a conversation, and when we have conversations, I think it's okay to also ask questions. I just want to understand what you're getting at here.
I'm getting at whether you think men should play in women's sports.
As the next U.S. Senator in Michigan,
it's a big issue.
I'm interested in getting money out of politics, putting money in your pocket, and passing Medicare for all.
You're filibustering,
most people don't care about what sports kids play. And
you're filibustering.
I'm just
it's a big issue.
Because, like, I want
you
to
guys
talk about
kind of lost on that issue
viewers
last time.
Deserve to hear about.
All right, so you want to answer that question.
What issue?
You want to answer the question.
What issue? Go ahead, Jesse. What issue?
Should men play women's sports? You have daughters, right?
I think that, look, I played sports my whole life. Sports were an important part of my life. I'm grateful for the opportunity to play sports. And at the end of the day,
yeah, Sneako, I see your chat, but it's not just trans sports being the biggest issue. It's a combination of so many other things. Like, you act like that's the only left-wing policy he's going to bring into legislation when he holds a seat in the Senate, which is significant, by the way, especially in a swing state like Michigan. Yeah, that's not it. That's not just it. It's not just trans sports. It's a combination of other things. It's immigration policy. It's economic policy. It's the green law policy. All these things about electric cars. These things change our everyday lives. Yeah, the senseless wars in the Middle East have to stop, but that's not where the problem stops when it comes to legislation. There's other things that matter. Defunding ICE, getting rid of ICE, lowering the pay for police where they're already not paid enough, an open border. These things will destroy the integrity of the country. Forget about white, black, Spanish, Asian. That's not even what I'm talking about. Economically, there will be disastrous effects as a result of this legislation, which we know he's in favor of. That's why he's struggling to spout it out. He doesn't want to be alienated.
The decision of who gets to play what sports ought to be decided by the people who govern sports. I'm running for U.S. Senate. Jesse, it's insane. I'm out here trying to take on like the healthcare crisis in big pharma, and you're asking me about who gets to play what sports. It's silly. People can't take you seriously.
It's kind of a big thing if you've been.
See, I don't like a politician that doesn't have any ideological base. I want a politician that's going to tell you whether he is in favor of it or not. I don't need somebody that's going to go, well, you know, what I'm worried about is, you know, the endless wars in the Middle East and that's it. It's like, okay, that's good. But you were asked about trans sports, so give a position on that so we can know where your mind is at. Like, that's a political campaign that's successful. That's one with integrity. That's one with character that you can understand. You know who you're voting for. You know who you're giving power to. That's what I think makes more sense. That's what I think is more comfortable to sit with if you're going to vote for that. I don't like somebody that just keeps ditching the question off to the wind and then goes back to healthcare. And no, we got to see where your ideological core is. You know, you're Muslim. He asked you about trans sports. Just say, look, men shouldn't be playing in girls' sports and girls shouldn't be playing in men's sports. That's that simple. That's all he has to say. But he's terrified because extremist Antifa anarchists back him and vote for him. So there is, like, is this not the proof in and of itself?
Following the news recently, Abdul. Let me ask you about the politics. We'll get to your race. Let's do your race right now.
Please be serious. Like,
this is literally political. All of this is politics.
I'm here with you. I want to have a conversation about the issues that matter.
Let's do it.
Let's talk about the things that people are actually talking about.
Okay. I am, but let's keep going. Black people in Michigan.
I know you guys are talking about that, but like most of the country's not.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. Black people in Michigan voted for this white lady you ran against by like 8 points over you. What happened there?
Well, Jesse, I mean, you said it yourself, right? You got to give credit to Abdul. He ran against the machine. I got outspent 11-1. That 11-1 is going to do something at the end of the day. Now, my job is to go and earn every vote. And we've been having some great conversations in the community. We'll continue to do that. And I have a lot to talk about when it comes to my work taking care of communities. I rebuilt Detroit's health department, led Wayne County's Department of Health, Human and Veteran Services, got to work alongside so many folks in the community to give kids glasses, take on corporate polluters, eliminate medical debt. I'm looking forward to continuing to have those conversations, and I feel really good about being able to bring communities together and beat Mike Rogers, who you and I both agree is a beta and won't come on your show and won't debate me in November.
He doesn't really believe all this leftist slop. He grifted that for DSA support like Mamdani. Riotoids are all loyal to Israel. DSA is the only funnel to resist AIPAC right now. People on the right are not all loyal to Israel. I've told you this before. That's not true. And also, he doesn't believe all this left slop. Really? Where's your proof for that? Doesn't seem like he doesn't believe it. And even if he does, even if you're right, he has to appease to his voter base. He has to carry on this rhetoric. So you're telling me all of this is just bullshit, and then he's going to get his seat in the Senate, and then when he's in the U.S. Senate, he's going to be based on everything. So he's going to take the anti-endless wars rhetoric all the way to the Senate seat. And also in that Senate seat, he's going to be perfect on immigration. He's going to be perfect on all of this trans bullshit. He's going to be perfect on economic policy. He's going to be perfect on ICE and border control. He's not. He's a leftist at the core. And we know where his ideology is. He just doesn't want to spell it out.
I agree to that, but that's funny. Reparations. Do you support?
Remember, a lot of Muslims vote for him too. He starts going in on that trans stuff. He starts going in on that, you know, I don't support sexual castration of children. Well, then there's a problem. Now he's appeasing to one side and he's not appeasing to the others. He's got the Muslims, he's got the DSA, he's got the radical leftists, he's got even just maybe normal Democrats that are shifting, the centrists. You know, he's got a lot of people that he's got to steer clear of upsetting. And I think that's going to carry over with who he is. I think that's carrying over with who he is. If you go back to all of his speeches in 2022, 2021, and what he was saying at these CARE rallies, Council on American Islamic Relations, it's all the same stuff. He hasn't really changed.
Support that?
but you laughed at it.
I did.
Because you didn't say you didn't agree. Like, Jesse, you're very good at telling me when you don't agree with me, but you actually laughed at that joke because you actually agree. Sorry.
Reparations. Do you support that?
I think we need to have an honest conversation about the incredible debt that was put upon black folks as a function of slavery that we
Oh my God, L. Discord, yeah, call me. My Discord's closed, sorry. If you were calling me, I didn't get it.
have yet to pay. And I just think that's fair. Like if people are enslaved and forced into servitude, and then we don't actually have a conversation about all that was owed, that
I'm on, Sneako.
Our own country agreed was owed, I just think that it's past time to have that conversation. That shouldn't be a crazy thing. You know, I understand that, like, for folks who really want to inflame culture war, I just think it's important for us to think about how do we make sure that communities like the city of Detroit that have been segregated so that you have a disproportionate number of people as a function of redlining who are forced into certain communities, how do we make sure that their schools are made whole? I'll just tell you this, in the city of Detroit right now, they just had $700 million invested in their schools. They're still $1.7 billion behind. And a lot of folks want to say, oh, well, that's profligacy, et cetera, et cetera. No, a lot of that has to do with...
Yo, are you live?
No, I ended.
Oh, okay. You're live on my end. Hold on. Sit down, bro. Alaikum salam. Hold on. Let me pull you up here. There we go.
Is there an
What's
echo?
up?
Do I have to echo?
No,
or
you're
not?
good. It doesn't sound that crisp, but you're good.
Yeah, noise suppression on. Yeah, this debate was interesting because it has a lot to do with what we've been talking about, the left and the right, and overall how these are issues meant to keep us sidetracked and arguing about overall unimportant issues while data centers, flock cameras, and $40 trillion in debt grows.
Yeah, I mean, what exactly about it is distracting? I'm not understanding what you're saying. What about it is culture war? This is all political. This is all legitimate stuff that affects people every day in the United States.
Yeah, the transport stuff is like, we're going to be arguing and debating about that for 10 years. There could literally be a nuke covered and wrapped into film and falling on Americans' heads, and they'll still be arguing about transports.
Well, no, look, look, in the face of everything else, you can argue it's an insignificant issue. I understand that, but that still matters. Like, people have kids here. People don't want any sort of legislation that is even near the idea of favoring men and girls sports or vice versa. So these things do matter. And I think when Abdul El Sayed is asked, oh, what do you think about men and girls sports, et cetera, or about men being able to remove their genitalia legally, I think that he shouldn't avoid those questions because those are answers people want to hear. Just because Israel controls the United States doesn't mean he gets to ignore these questions, bro. He's running for U.S. Senate in the United States.
Yeah, but I saw in that debate, a lot of that stuff he probably does realize is dumb. Like he said, are you circumcised when reacting to transports? I don't know if you got to that part yet. The reparations thing, that's dumb. Yeah. Also not going to happen. Like, that's not even going to be the case. Overall, these issues, they are just used for populist rhetoric and nothing changes. Like, right or left, the trans issue is not changed. And right now, Trump's using rhetoric because he's so unpopular. Hegseth was on stage and he said, I don't even know if I could say that word. He said no grannies, but with a T. He said no grannies in the U.S. military. But they're also using rhetoric like they need to free Iran because they throw gays off the roof. So it's like, are you pro-LGBT or not?
What you have to understand about Trump and Pete Hegseth and the other retards in this GOP is they've done everything to campaign the right talking points, but they haven't enacted them. So if we get somebody who's from the right or a GOP, right, grand old party, Republicans, that actually are representative of the things that they promised prior in their campaign, then we'll see a different country that doesn't favor Israel as hard. It's just that this specific administration is beyond horrible when it comes to their support for Israel and everything like that. So I think that you using them as an example as to what's representative of the right is a misrepresentation in a way. But I mean, even in who's the leader of the right wing in what sense? The U.S. president?
Who's leading the right-wing movement? Even like, don't even
Trump
there you go.
Is the biggest symbol of the right wing because he happens to be the president. That doesn't mean that what he's doing is favorable to everybody who establishes themselves as right wing, though.
The point is,
so what does that question represent? That question makes no sense. What are you trying to say?
You're saying that it doesn't represent all of the right wing, but the leader is Trump. He is the symbol of Republican politics.
Yeah, but hang on. That doesn't correlate. Again, just because Trump is the symbol of Republican politics doesn't mean his ideas are in unison with everybody else who's Republican. And by the way, I didn't vote for Trump. Didn't you have a Trump hat on 2 years ago? I wasn't the one who voted for Trump.
Okay. Yeah, again, that was because I'm trying to show the people that want to put America first that it can't happen without putting Israel last. I didn't vote for Trump either. That's the reason that I had the hat on. We've had this conversation. Ultimately, the reason this debate's important.
You endorsed him.
Look, the reason this debate's important, he was winning, and the point was to get these people to understand with the debate, like I had with Rabbi Shmuley, what is really occupying our country, right? That it's not the left, and even like Pablo Fuentberg tweeted, like, you know, it's not the Epstein class, it's the left. It's like this is so clearly just perpetuating a system where we argue about minor issues forever, right? We're never going to agree. Like, people are never going to agree in this country about transports, about reparations, about like if the NFL's racist, and defining your ideology off of these issues that don't change left or right anyway is a waste of time. And as we keep on arguing for years, it's like there's flock cameras on every.
But this falls flat in the face of the fact that you're supporting the left, though. I mean, the candidates that you're supporting, they're all left wing, are they not?
I've supported Fishback before he said deport me. I supported Thomas Massey before the AIPAC rigged it against him. I support people who acknowledge
but
the
all
greatest...
the DSA candidates, are you not in favor of them?
No, there's a lot of them that make major mistakes. I'm not a DSA member.
So you don't support Mamdani?
Mamdani's doing a great job.
So you support Mamdani?
Yeah, I don't support DSA as a whole. That's what you're insinuating.
But it seemed like in my chat you were just going for Abdul El-Sayed. I'm trying to figure out where you are. Because if you're not...
Abdul El-Sayed is clearly the best option for Michigan. If he's not taking AIPAC money, and he did have to fold a lot, and he put a condemnation
I don't like Mike
out.
Rogers, but I just wouldn't vote if I were there.
Okay, I think it's more valuable to put your platform where it matters the most. Like, you don't have to agree with everybody. There's no politician that's going to agree with everything that you believe in. It doesn't exist. But what's the most important?
But I won't be a one-issue voter on Israel. I won't, because if we're doing that, the bar is in hell. Okay, this guy doesn't take AIPAC.
Are you a
so if somebody
voter?
let me just draw out a bigger conclusion for you, or a bigger example. If somebody doesn't take AIPAC money, but everything else is against what you believe in and against what you believe is good for the country, does it actually make sense to vote for that person when ultimately Israel will still have control in the Middle East, whether the United States supports them or not, because they're the only nuclear power in the Middle East, irrespective of everything else? I mean, you really got to think about these things on a deeper level. For me, what makes more sense is withholding.
He's right about the most important stuff.
Yeah, but even then, he's cucked. Doesn't he always say, oh, well, actually, I just kind of want to stop unconditional support, and I'm all in support of Jewish people and this and that. He's being alienated from like his extreme Muslim base anyways. So Abdul El-Sayed is like funny because, and Hassan Piker is falling for the same thing. You see Hassan Piker used to seem based, and now he's being attacked by the left because of the things that he says against Israel. So the guy who comes from the
mainstream by the mainstream left, not the far.
No. There's no different. There's no distinguishing. There's no difference between Hassan Piker and the establishment left when it comes to calling people anti-Semites, though, because he called you an anti-Semite.
Yeah, it's hypocritical.
So he falls for it too.
Yeah, I know. People have to garner a populist movement to become successful right now. Right, the DSA, they get it right about the most important stuff right now, but they failed so many times.
Yeah, but they're retards, bro. They want socialism that's antithetical to the way the U.S. works. That will never favor our economy.
Okay, but living and dying for capitalism, where has that brought us? Endless wars, $40 trillion in debt.
Capitalism has nothing to do with war, Sneako. What are you talking about?
It incentivizes this system, this war machine that goes on forever.
No, it doesn't.
The military-industrial complex is extremely profitable. You know how much money they make around the world from these wars? That has nothing to do with... And there's new startups. Power Us is making a new startup in Palm Beach, Florida right now, developing drone technology for
Russia's a communist country, and they're also a mighty military power that's bullying Ukraine. Capitalism has nothing to do with being a country that harbors war and attacks countries for no reason. Capitalism is an economic policy and an economic ideology.
The people that benefit from capitalism the most are the billionaires that you just called evil, like Elon, like Trump. They don't want to stop immigration.
That's not true.
They want to dominate their companies.
That's not
with
true.
immigrants.
Capitalism benefits you.
Elon and Trump right now are issuing tons of H-1B visas because that's who's going to work hard. Elon said himself, white men are dumb. That's why he gets Indians to work on SpaceX and Tesla.
Yeah,
it's
but
predominantly H-1B workers.
But what you're talking about is not a product of capitalism. This is just a matter of Elon Musk and his own ideology and him benefiting from immigrants because he doesn't want to pay Americans more money. But that's not necessarily a capitalistic policy. The difference between capitalism and socialism is centralized government and centralized power versus non-centralized and free market. So if you understand that, then you understand that if you understand that, you understand free market and things not being centralized doesn't necessitate endless wars. The reason why we're in endless wars is because Israel has a death hold on our Congress. No, it's not. No, it's not. That has nothing to do with it.
The people that
the military industrial complex angle actually has no favor in what you're trying to spiel. It actually has favor in what I'm trying to say because the United States benefits from, the United States benefits from having such a powerful military because everybody depends on us for defense. That has nothing to do with us killing Muslims in the Middle East. How are you drawing that connection?
You're just like making up something that I didn't say any of this stuff. Immediately looking away. I didn't say like, I didn't bring up the Middle East.
You said capitalism brings us in endless wars.
Part of the reason that we're incentivized to create endless wars is because that's one of the major components of the economy. These companies make tons of money off of endless wars.
That's not it. It's because donors control our politicians.
This is an extremely profitable.
It's because donors control our politicians.
There's multiple reasons why something happens, especially like these wars, right? This is not just one thing. Obviously, that's the most important, Israel. But capitalism does incentivize people to profit off of these wars, to benefit off of the mass immigration caused by these wars, to dominate their companies with these immigrants that are the result of these wars. Absolutely. But people will say that they don't want around the world, around America specifically, so many people, they don't want to ally or they want to disagree with someone who says we want universal health care. Even if you spell it out, I think the majority of Americans, something like 73% reported or 77, all agree, universal health care should be for all Americans. We're 40 trillion in debt, gas is at 5. Trump is saying publicly we can't afford for social services like healthcare, like childcare.
Yeah, because the U.S.,
because we have to pay for these wars.
60%, but that doesn't have to do with capitalism. That has to do with our budget and how we choose to spend. We spend so much money on liabilities and Social Security already. The United States is one of the few countries in the world that supports people without anything in return, like no other country. That's why everybody fucking flocks to come here. I think out of the entire budget, 50% goes towards Social Security and liabilities.
70% is in the military, 70% goes to war.
Yeah, but that has to stay that way if the United States wants to be the most powerful country in the world. You realize that, right? We have to continue to spend on our military. And by the way, left-wing establishments like the Biden and the rest all spend a ton of money on the military. So you want a socialist who's going to take all the money out the military and give it to these fucking immigrants who shouldn't be? Hang on. What's the antidote to the problem?
The number one issue, you understand, is Israel's occupation of America. AIPAC bought politicians.
Yes, socialism doesn't address that problem.
I never said that.
So but you're making a case that capitalism suggests support for Israel, and I'm telling you how it doesn't.
There is a lot of instances where if we need to maintain superiority, we need to be the dominant nation in the world, that we need to suppress others because this is how the economy works, by being the number one, policing the rest of the world, controlling their economy, making them, bully them into using the petrodollar.
Sneako, how do you think we got to where we are?
This is also a product of capitalism. If it's a capitalist country that needs to be in charge and force people to use our system, then they're tied in hand.
But what's the greatest
capitalist
nation?
System only works if we can dominate the world.
But shouldn't we dominate the world? Wouldn't you want the United States to dominate the world? That doesn't mean we need to be tyrannical against the world, but we need to dominate the world.
That's a great question. Dominate the world. I mean, that hasn't benefited the citizens, right? This is
it has. Of course, it fucking has.
If we keep going down this track, it's going to get worse and worse for the average person. Gas is $5. The wealth gap is bigger than it's ever been.
Because we're in a war with Iran. Because Trump listened to Netanyahu. That has nothing to do with the United States being this imperial power in the Western Hemisphere, which benefits us.
Not just the Western Hemisphere, around the world. Like, what has happened since the U.S. became the global superpower? The only nuke that was ever dropped was on Japan by the American Empire. How many millions of people were killed in Iraq? 1 million people in Vietnam. How many people in Iran?
That didn't support the American empire, though. Everything you're saying has to do with the things that I agree with you on. Yeah, we should have never killed 1 million people in Iraq. Yeah, we should have never. By the way, that was the thing Trump was saying in 2015, which likely earned him the win in the election. He said we should have never been in Iraq. It was a mistake. But what I'm trying to tell you is,
he said you should be impeached if you start an endless war in the Middle East.
We were in Iraq for Israel. That's a part of the clean break strategy, and now we're in Iran for a part of that same clean break strategy in '96. This is all Netanyahu's plan. But what I'm telling you is that is completely separated from the United States flexing its power and dominance and influence across Europe with NATO and everything else. That's way different. And so I'm opposed to changing regimes in Iran, and I'm opposed to regime change in general, especially Middle Eastern intervention. But I think that you're trying to draw out this like connection between capitalism potentially being the catalyst for the United States killing people, and that's just like not how it works. The United States is killing innocent people because we're controlled by Israel and our politicians are hijacked, and that's a problem.
This is a product of a capitalist like dominant society where people live and die.
That's not, bro. The two don't have anything to do with one another. I just explained that to you numerous times.
AIPAC is the one funding them and buying out all these politicians. If they're going to continue to follow this society and not care about the average person, then of course every politician is going to sell out to the country that's giving them the most money. This is also a product of capitalism.
How does that have to do with capitalism? Explain that.
If they're incentivized to not care about the average person and pocket as much money as possible, capitalism creates this endless system where people are corrupt because they're getting paid out. Because they don't need to care about
capitalism capitalism creates opportunity. It's why the United States is so powerful. If you read, bro,
and also opportunity for people to exploit it endlessly.
Yeah, or leverage it to make the United States more powerful and offer more jobs here in the United States. You know where the issue comes up with that? Like you mentioned earlier, maybe H-1B visas and things like that. But more millionaires and billionaires existing in the United States and more trade wars and more tariffs is actually beneficial for the United States to stay as powerful as it is. Everybody's bitching about this trade war between Canada, but the truth is, I think it's 72% of Canada's exports come into the U.S. They need us. So I actually do like that Trump exploits the fact that countries need us, and this free trade situation that we've had with the world actually exploits the U.S. in a weak way. And so a lot of what you're arguing...
I don't know if you could be happy about the trade war as much. I mean, Mark Carney said publicly that he's looking at other opportunities. Pakistan...
Why do you think he's doing that, though? Why do you think Mark Carney is looking at other ways to find somebody to give his stuff to? It's because
he's able to. The reason that he declared an economic trade war... He doesn't see America as the same threat that it was before. They weren't able to have this much. They weren't able to be this confident before. They weren't able to.
That's a fundamental misunderstanding of economics, Sneako. The reason why Carney is looking to circumvent his exports and the amount of money he's making around the world is because he needs the United States. China did this. When we entered a trade war with China, they looked elsewhere because they needed us, but they were actually able to figure it out. Canada may not be able to face that same reality. So them trying to circumvent the matter by trying to find other people to trade with is a direct tell to the fact that they need us. If they didn't need us, they wouldn't be desperately scrambling like that. They have to fill that gap.
If they needed us, then they would have declared a trade war. If they needed us, then this wouldn't happen.
No. You don't declare a trade war when you need the country. Do you know what a tariff is?
Yes, it's a tax on a product. They don't need America.
It's a tax on an imported good.
Yes.
And the United States is telling Canada, we're going to tax your goods. When you bring them in, you're going to pay more.
They responded saying they're going to go dollar for dollar, which they would not have been able to do before.
They cannot.
Yeah, for a second. They're going to, and they
don't have the ability. They don't have a GDP like ours. They don't have an economy like ours, and we buy all of their shit. We keep them afloat. We don't need.
They don't need, and they do not need America the same way as they used to, like the rest of the world is starting to see. This is the reason that there's a new defense pact happening between Pakistan, Saudi, and Turkey. That's the reason that Pakistan is not following U.S. trade block on Iran. That's the reason why China doesn't have to fold when the U.S. says don't trade with Iran. The rest of the world, is realizing they don't need to be reliant on the American system the same way before, because we have caused too many conflicts and we are started to spread ourselves thin. And now we found ourselves $40 trillion in debt. America is not seen as the same threat as it once was. The rest of the world is starting to take notice.
I've acknowledged that, but the trade war in Canada has nothing to do with that. That's because Trump is trying to show face for midterms. And that's because Trump is tired of the disproportionate trade relationship between us and Canada. And
he
like
wants
I said,
to seem like he wants to seem like a bully again after getting bitched around by Iran. He wants to seem tough and say New Lake America instead of Lake Ontario. It's a show.
Yeah,
but
Trump is an idiot. But what I'm trying to draw out to you is the United States is still the #1 most powerful country economically, which is why everybody fucking blinks and flinches and jolts when we threaten tariffs on them.
They just reported that there's about 40
not for long if we continue our wars in the Middle East and all these other things, and that's why
we will if we don't get AIPAC out. We will continue these endless wars if something isn't changed. Our oil reserves. It's reported 41 days left of these oil reserves.
Hang on.
If you look at this honestly, the economy is gonna crash.
We know that. So what would you rather? Hang on. So what would you rather? Would you rather support Israel? By the way, you do realize Israel can cut the umbilical cord at this point, right? They don't need us. They're going to continue to wreak havoc in the Middle East regardless.
Yeah, they've used us and
they don't need us. So that's important to understand. That makes everything else a lot less important. But let's just take this at face value. Let's say we have two options. We either vote for a Republican who's going to take AIPAC money and support Israel in some way, or we vote for a far left radical DSA candidate that's going to open the borders and call for socialism or socialism favored policies. Exactly which one is worse?
Trump did not stop any of the illegal immigration, and none of the rightoids like Elon Musk publicly.
Yes,
I mean,
he did.
The deportation numbers. It's just report. It was compared
you said
to what
illegal
he was
immigration. You should have said he didn't do any deportations. Those are two different things.
Okay, deportation. It's a product of illegal immigration. Like you're
but he stopped the immigration. He closed.
He was not strong on immigration the way he said he was going to be. Most of these issues are just used as populist slop, and nothing gets done right or left.
No, Trump actually was trying to deport people, and the fucking leftists, the ones that are winning in New York and winning in Michigan, were bitching about it.
Well,
Trump was actually trying to.
His appointed Supreme Court justice overturned the birthright law. So it's not just the leftists.
Yeah, because he pushed for it too late. He pushed for it after everything was already in the fucking toilet. Trump still had the ability. Look, there's no question about it. Trump is a paper tiger. He didn't deliver on a bunch of the things that he said he would. But what I'm saying is Trump's promises for the country are far more beneficial. It doesn't matter what he's doing. What I'm saying is what he's campaigning on. And that campaign promise still holds true to stabilize the U.S. economy today. But he's just not delivering on it.
The thing is, we need to realize as Americans, if we care about this country, it's just promises. Like it's just rhetoric. And it does these minor issues that people divide on are never changed. Like it stays the same. And America is really used as a war machine for Israel. There's not a major difference between the mainstream Democrats and the mainstream Republicans. I'm sure you saw Hakeem Jeffries just met with Jared Kushner, and he is the leader of the Democrat Party in the House and will probably end up being the majority leader when the Democrats destroy the Republicans in the midterms. There's no major difference. They're owned by the same people. They're incentivized to benefit the same system.
Bro, I completely agree with you, but that doesn't mean I'm going to concede to that and vote for socialists, as I've just demonstrated why socialism is not compatible with the United States and why I'm not in favor of it, and why capitalism doesn't always necessitate war. That's not what capitalism means.
Like, imagine if they just didn't say socialist, if you didn't have this word. Like, what are they prioritizing?
But that has an inherent meaning, bro. That's a thing. Okay.
But then this system,
you do realize this comes from.
Then the economy is going to be destroyed. And then regular citizens are going to not be able to work anymore. Like, there's less jobs. The wealth gap is bigger. AI is replacing. Like, what's the average citizen going to be able to do? If you live and die for capitalism, where is this leading to?
I'm not living and dying. See, don't misrepresent my position, though. I'm not living and dying for capitalism. I just won't vote for somebody that spews socialism policies. Zoran Mamdani is a full-fledged democratic socialist. I'm not in favor of that for everything I just explained.
The crime rate is lower than it's ever been in decades in New York City. He has 70% approval rating.
What has he done to lower the crime rate?
Right now.
What has he
done? Mamdani's doing a great job.
What has he done to lower the crime rate?
He has focused more on, he's prioritized childcare, social services. He has not betrayed the NYPD the way that they were afraid. You know, and it's
That-
also
that-
just
I
an
don't know
overall.
if that doesn't
it's
correlate
probably,
to lowering
like,
the crime.
probably the main
Or was
reason
it
is
just
the
that the crime
overall
rate dropped when he happened to become mayor?
It's these are like all-time low crime rate numbers in the city in decades. This is true. Like, whatever you want to point to figure out why, this is a fact. So I mean, he's
it has nothing to do with
over.
him.
He had. So what is it?
I'm not claiming to be the one who knows, but you are. So tell
Okay,
me, since
everyone was
socialism is so
apprehensive.
good, tell me why it's so good for. So hang on. Yo. I'm gonna let you talk. Do you see how you are supporting socialism though, and then you come back around and you say you're not? So you're in favor of it.
It's not that I'm supporting socialism. I'm supporting politicians that are caring about the citizens more than benefiting their own pockets in Israel. That's the most important thing.
But Sneako, because they smile in your face and they say, "I care about you and I want to put money in your pockets," doesn't take away from the fact that their policies,
it's not just
if
rhetoric from
actually
Mamdani.
nationalistically represented, they will destroy the country. That's a fact.
Okay, well, in
That's
New York
a fact.
City,
If Zoran Mamdani had presidential or executive power, he
you were
would
gonna let me-
destroy
you
the
said you were gonna let
U.S.
me-
Go ahead.
You said you were going to let me speak. Everyone
Go
was
ahead.
afraid. You were really afraid. Oh my God, socialists are going to destroy New York City right now. Lowest crime rate in decades. Child services are now being allocated to parents. They said that everyone was going to leave and the rich people were going to go flock to Florida. And now even the office space rents are at a price where it's not destroyed. Like, people aren't all leaving. Working people, millionaires aren't leaving the city in hordes like they said. Jobs are here. New York City is in a revival because for once people are saying, wait, this politician could actually do stuff instead of just pocket money for himself. Everybody that was so afraid about socialism can look at New York City right now and see, wait a second, socialism means childcare, means helping out people, means fixing the potholes, means a lower crime rate, then maybe it isn't so bad. Why don't we have universal health care? Why don't regular citizens in Michigan have access to these services?
New York City has been a flourishing city before Zoran Mamdani, with jobs and with everything else, and he's done little to nothing to change that. The most notable things Mamdani has done has filled potholes and installed water fountains in parks, and then gotten millions of views on TikToks doing it.
Fixed the highways and brought childcare to parents and lowered the rent.
Cuomo was also fixing highways too. Everybody else was fixing highways too.
Eric Adams was fixing highways in New York City?
Yes.
I never saw him fix a highway here. The BQE's been destroyed for years. Mamdani has followed up with a lot of the promises he made.
New York City has not changed.
And everybody, the right away, it's very interesting to see
New
this
York
because
City has literally not changed, bro.
I just listed you like 5 explicit reasons why it has. So many people, the right wingers, the base Christ build white nationalist right wingers were so
Why do you say that? Why do you say that? It's like your grievances with white people instead of right wingers. It's two different things.
Let me finish my point. The right wingers who were saying New York City was going to turn into the purge. It was going to become anarchy. The communists are going to take over. And now it's in a revival in so many different aspects, economically, culturally, and also for the average citizen that they did not expect. And they were all wrong about that.
Where are the numbers on this?
If people were correct about their demonization of socialism so much, then they would have been vindicated about Mamdani's New York. In fact, they're correct. They were proven wrong. And Mamdani has exceeded expectations and probably laid the groundwork and showed the rest of America this is what it's like when people prioritize the citizens rather than the billionaire class that benefits the most from endless capitalism. Endless capitalism has created this billionaire oligarch class that just screws over and turns the average citizen into cattle to work for them.
There's always going to be a billionaire oligarch class, whether there's...
And they need to get taxed more. They need to be taxed more.
No, why? Where's that tax money going to go? To people for healthcare, to give it to people who aren't working for it? We already spend so much fucking money on social services. It's one of the biggest strains of our budget every single year.
70% is the military.
Why do we need to spend more on it?
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. What are you talking? No. You want to Google it? You want to Google where most of the money goes out of the budget?
70% of the budget is to the military-industrial complex. 70.
Yeah, that's never going to change. That's never going to change. That cannot change. Then you're going to ruin the country. That cannot change. That's one of our biggest points of leverage. That's one of our biggest points of leverage.
No, these wars recently, especially right now, they're not meant to benefit America. We're doing them and we're dragged into these wars for Israel.
The wars have nothing to do with what I just said. The war has nothing. What wars? The war in Iran? What does that have to do with what I just said?
Perfect example. Venezuela in January, which I
were we at war under Biden?
He did fund the genocide in Gaza.
Yeah, but
endlessly.
were we at war like how we're at war now? No. We supported Israel like we always do. But we weren't at war. He still spent a shit ton on military. That's a fixed number. That's not changing. That's not changing. And also
that mentality
the
is the
liabilities, the liabilities portion of budget is also fixed, and it increases every year. It's bipartisan, whether it's right or left. It always goes up.
You don't think that we should spend less money on war and more money on social services?
No. You're convoluting what I'm saying. I am not pro-war. I am not pro-war. We should spend money on a war when we need to be in a war, not in Iran.
You're not answering my question. Should we spend less money on war and more money on social services?
No, because we already pay too much fucking money on social services.
Okay, well, 70% on war. You don't think that should move down to maybe 50 or 40?
We already. Do you want to look up the spending every single year for social services and liabilities? Do you know how much we spend on Social Security?
Why don't we have universal health care then?
I don't know. Do you have the answer for that? You have the answer for that? Take all the money out of the millionaires' pockets that give people jobs and then give it to people and give them free health care? And we should give Americans health care. How many fucking non-Americans who are here illegally have free health care because we fucking pay for it?
Illegal immigrants should be deported, but the people that pretend to be right-wing...
Careful. The DSA don't want to hear that. Careful.
I know. I'm not DSA. That's you're literally saying exactly what the problem is. You think that it needs to be binary. You're a liberal. You're a liberal. No, there's mistakes that have been made. Huge mistakes on the left and huge mistakes on the right. We saw it in this debate. Does he need to triple down on transgender surgeries and reparations? No. But he's saying this rhetoric because the DSA left. These are the only people that pose a threat to AIPAC. You're a liberal because you want social services. Dude, too much money spent on war, Ryad.
Yeah, so Sneako, you don't believe in the right and the left. You're saying you're not trying to...
Again, now you're misrepresenting. Of course, okay, there's a difference between believing in... Yes, it exists. But we are divided off of slop when the right and the left, let me finish, the right and the left pretty much universally agree in America that universal health care is more important than endless wars. Flock cameras shouldn't be set up in every neighborhood. We all agree that data centers are probably not necessary to spend all this money on. We both agree that the Epstein class has too much control. The most important issues, the left and the right agree on, but we divide ourselves because that sounds like socialism. That sounds like fascism. And then we just argue about transgender sports while our country gets destroyed. Time to put the culture war slop aside. Stop thinking, wait, you want girls to play in boys' sports? It's like Trump is saying right now that in the Biden administration, public schools were allowing kids to secretly get transgender surgeries and then go home as a girl after arriving to school as a boy. That didn't even happen. They're just pushing this out there because they need to get support before the midterms. Transgenderism is just pushed as slop to divide people.
So, bro, if everybody thought the way, so look, that's all cute. If everybody thought the way you thought, that'd be great. That'd be great. But do you know what the left would say in the face of everything you're saying? Because right now, what you want is the country to all come to one consensus and understand we got to get rid of the billionaire oligarchs and the flock cameras and the data centers, which, by the way, you could argue the data centers aren't even as bad for the country as people are making it out to be. That's a populist talking point. People don't even understand. I'm not saying I like them. I'm not. Don't misrepresent what I'm saying. I'm just saying they're not as negative people make them out to be. Let me finish my point. Then you can ask me about data centers in a moment because I didn't cut you off. I didn't cut you off, so you can't cut me off. I'll let you finish your point.
You're neutral on data centers?
So let me just ask you a question. You're neutral on Zoran Mamdani in the DSA.
No, I'm positive.
Anyways, as I was saying, you're not going to stop me in the middle of my point. Let me finish. I'll let you finish.
Mamdani, great job. Mamdani is killing it, mayor. I'm not on the fence about. I'm not on the fence about data centers.
Good for you. He'd ride the fence about you and call you a Nazi. Anyways, just listen to what I'm saying.
Who cares?
People carry these talking points, and they don't actually understand whether it's beneficial for the country or not in the short term and the long term. We need to compete with China for AI. China's the biggest threat to the United States. So when everybody's bitching about AI is taking jobs and data centers and bro, get with it or get lost. China's gonna rape us. So that there's bigger things to be spoken about there. But again, when you run with this populist rhetoric all the time, you're missing the greater issue that the United States faces from a national security perspective and from an international perspective. That's with China, that's with Russia, that's with anybody else. But let me ask you this question, because you cut me off. You made me divert. If you're saying everybody should come to a consensus, who's going to agree with you on that? And I'm not saying you're allying with him. are the Hassan Pikers and the leftists and everybody else, are they going to be on board with that? Deadass. Ask yourself that question. Everything you're saying is idealistic. It's a fairy tale land. Are they going to agree with that? Or are they going to say, no, 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 we don't give a fuck. Joe Rogan's a Nazi. Tim Pool's a Nazi. Oh, yeah, and Sneako, too. He's also a far-right Nazi. There's no banding together with those people, so we might as well set aside our differences and compete. And by the way, that's the way the U.S. works.
You want me to? Okay. People on the right are as cultish and locked in as the people on the left.
No, the fuck they're not. No, the fuck they're not. Look at Tucker Carlson. Look at Candace Owens. They're all sympathizing with the left. Candace Owens didn't say anything about Hassan Piker the other day when he commented on the debate. Tucker Carlson is trying to call for this unification. Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Greene, and Thomas Massie just released this proposal to get the U.S. to unite on a bunch of things to eradicate the Epstein class. And you know who's going to spit in their face and tell them fuck off because you're white supremacists? The left. So when you say, the left and the white, the left hate. No, I'm proving my point. I'm not proving your point in any ways. You're running around saying that, hang on, no. You're running around repeating what they're saying, oh, guys, we all need to hold hands. It's okay. Don't worry. But these same people that you want to hold hands with hate you, and they never would do that. Didn't you go to a DSA rally and they all just shat on you?
You're circling now. Let me respond.
I'm not circling. You have no response for my respond to that. Please respond to that.
I'm trying to, and you keep talking. Like you said, respond to this and then you talk.
Go.
Okay. Calm down, man. Tucker and Candace Massie, they're starting to realize what we need to do. It's Americans and the regular citizens against the Epstein class. This is why they're letting go of the right-left paradigm. This is why they're abandoning their allegiance to a party and to these ideologies that just keep us divided. Tucker, Candace agree about the data centers. They agree upon the flock cameras, just like people on the left. And so instead of living and dying for these parties, instead of saying, they hate us, they are trying to pave a new way where people don't get trapped into this paradigm that just benefits the same people.
So what happens when Tucker and Marjorie Greene and Thomas Massie and all of them are asked about immigration and they say they're anti-immigration? What does the left do then?
Anti-illegal immigration, and that's good.
But that's not what the left is. The left thinks there should be mass amnesty and all the immigrants that are here illegally should be given reparations and should be given citizenship. You do realize they talk about all the things that people can unite on. There are certain issues that people can unite on. Yeah, Epstein was evil. Okay, we all agree about that. Yeah, we should slow down data centers. Okay, fine, that's cute. No flock cameras. Yeah, I agree. Okay, fine. But what about all the other things that are going to draw a division, which is why there are two sides? What are they going to say about that? When it comes to ICE, when it comes to immigration, when it comes to foreign policy, when it comes to tariffs, when it comes to trade, what are they going to say about that? And how are they going to earn favorability from this unison party? People are going to divert.
Our country is going to be destroyed economically and not last as the empire dominating the world. We're not going to be existing the same way. It's looking really bad right now with the oil reserves, with the debt, with the trajectory. It's going to be a failure and not a lot of people are talking about it. It's time to sacrifice the culture war stop and say, okay, look, right and left, most of the stuff doesn't change, all right? There's always going to be a level of illegal immigration. It is what it is. We need to resist it. Maybe ICE is trained too much by the IDF and they shouldn't be deployed into Minnesota and California when Trump doesn't like the politicians there. But yes, it's necessary to have some border control. Are we going to agree about trans issues forever? Probably not. We both agree on the most important issues, especially foreign policy, that we shouldn't be spending all this money on Israel. We need to end these endless wars, focus on the main, and sacrifice both sides. Right and left need to be like, okay, you know what? I've been arguing about transgenders for 10 years straight. And
I didn't bring up transgenders once.
I know you didn't. I'm talking generally. This is not at you. This is at America. Let's stop dividing and arguing about transgenders and about, wait, you're right and I'm this. Identity politics used to be the core issue of the left for a long time. And now the left, they're getting it right about the economy. The right used to complain that the left were too focused on identity politics. And now the right wing is dominated by identity politics. White nationalism, transgenders, we need the white race and Sharia law is taken over. It's stupid. If we actually want to save this country and this clearly sinking ship, drop the culture war slop and focus on what's important.
Part of this so-called culture war slop, again, you didn't answer my question. Part of the shit that has to do with the culture war slop is also destroying the country. Are you against ICE?
Of course, you need to have immigration officers, yeah. But they're doing too much a lot of the time. They're going too far.
How?
They've been deployed. They haven't been used. They were deployed by Trump into Minnesota and California just because he didn't like Tim Walz and he doesn't like Gavin Newsom. Most of these ICE agents, a lot of them are also trained by the IDF. They're trained to be on the southern Mexican border. And then they go into Minnesota where there's a bunch of, and they start harassing. And he does that purposely to militarize the police and to start to create a police state where citizens are harassed. It's not being used correctly.
Should illegal aliens, it's this simple. Should illegal aliens be allowed to stay here?
No.
All right, so how do you get rid of them?
Okay, well, ICE agents, I just said this, they're not being used to get rid of the illegal immigrants. Look at the deportation numbers. They're hilariously low based off of what Trump said. They're being used to create chaos.
When they try and, how are they creating chaos? No, what happens is when you try and remove people who shouldn't be here, chaos follows because no one's going to get up and go on a plane willingly. So you need the chaos in order to remove them. This has nothing to do with it. What is with the numbers in the... I'm asking you simple questions. You don't believe in illegal immigration. You think people should be deported if they're here illegally. Okay, what logically follows? It's unfortunately going to be chaotic. It's unfortunately going to be violent. I wish it wasn't that way, but that's a necessary evil of that reality.
The deportation numbers do not reflect the amount of militarization that we've seen from the ICE agents. It doesn't reflect it at all. The budget that's going to the ICE agents, it's not being used to get rid of the illegal immigrants, or else the numbers would be a lot higher and they wouldn't be afraid to release those numbers. Clearly, Trump is using them to harass places and people to cause chaos in areas that he doesn't like. It's not being used properly.
That's not true. There's ICE in my local area. There's literally ICE everywhere. What is that? That still doesn't have to do with anything I asked you. I'm not asking about Trump's implementation of ICE and how he's deporting people and how he's using it against his political enemies. When ICE is going into cities and finding illegal aliens and removing them, they are doing exactly what their job is descripted to tell them to do. How is that Trump leveraging them?
I don't know how you don't see the point.
You're not making a point at all.
I am making the point. Based off of how much ICE has been militarized and has caused chaos in
cities. They have to be militarized. They have to be.
I'm not like the deportation numbers should be able to reflect how much ICE has been used to start creating a police state, and it hasn't. Based off of how many ICE agents are now deployed all over America, you would expect the deportation numbers to match the money and the amount of officers, but it doesn't. So clearly they're not being used predominantly to deport illegal immigrants, but to create a new police state, to usher in something new, a new world order.
But bro, that's fine. I'm not supporting Trump, and I'm not saying Trump is doing a good. First of all, I never supported Trump. We know that. Secondly, I don't think he's doing a good job with deportations at all. That's fine. What I'm saying, ICE needs to. You're forgetting where we came from in this conversation. ICE needs to exist. ICE needs to remove people who are here illegally. That unfortunately requires force, violence, and chaos. And if you said that in the face of your political party unification process where you want all the people to get together on populist rhetoric, they would spit in your face. That's what I'm trying to tell you. I don't care about Trump creating a police state. It has nothing to do with what I'm telling you.
You don't think they're trying to create a police state with flock cameras, data centers everywhere, and ICE in your city when they're supposed to?
Yeah, you can make that argument. I think there's a mass surveillance campaign against U.S. citizens. I think there's a mass surveillance campaign against U.S. citizens, but that's going to happen no matter who's president because the money behind it is irresistible, unfortunately. I think that Trump has done nothing except accelerate that, but...
Wow, I thought you loved capitalism.
Yeah, I do.
Okay,
what does capitalism have to do with donations?
It's not just donations. This is why we are getting to this point.
That's what it is, though. These politicians are incentivized to do that because they're paid money by a lot of these conglomerates to pass legislation and favor their technology in major cities.
People afraid of being called a communist or a socialist is why people are afraid to criticize the ones that profit off of capitalism the most. It's not been benefiting the average citizen. It's only helping create more billionaires.
Okay, so you're a socialist.
And now, I hope, please tell me someone
you're just shitting on capitalism. So I'm just you refuse to take a stance. I'm so confused.
No, I don't. Let me explain before you interrupt. I'm a Muslim. Any of these isms,
me too.
This is a way that this is how people get pigeonholed. This is something that does not line up. This is how people get stuck into a box that does not match their ideology at all. Sometimes it's inevitable for socialist policies to autocorrect what capitalist policies have created. right? If socialism goes too far, communism has done horrible things, right? They got rid of religion in Eastern Europe. It's not been properly used in so much of the world. But right now, with capitalism going so far extreme here, yeah, some socialist policies are necessary to autocorrect it. I'm not any of these isms. I don't get trapped into these boxes, okay? But looking at what's happening right now, clearly people need to prioritize and need to vote for people that care about the average person and not pocketing more money for the billionaires that just want to spy on you and militarize your city. It's not that I'm a socialist or I'm a capitalist. I am neither. I'm not a capitalist. I'm not a socialist. I'm not a communist, and I'm not a Nazi. I'm a Muslim, and I'm seeing what's happening right now, and nobody's addressing it because they're afraid to be boxed in with a leftist or a rightoid. It's like this endless debate only helps them out. We got to get out of this box.
Yeah, but that's so right. Everything you're saying is good, but you, in the attempt to try and push for a greater cause or push for this message to be seen and heard, is you boxing yourself in with the left because you're inevitably forced to support people on the left. You're inevitably you're supporting people who are ideologically based on the left. Maybe you're not. You're telling me, Ryad, I'm not any of these things.
So are you,
that's
right?
fine.
You think Abdul's
but the
better than
people
Mike?
the people that you inevitably hang on. Can I just let you finish? The people that you inevitably have to support because they happen to be the ones who are anti-AIPAC are also the ones that are in favor of all the shitty policy that I just highlighted to you. So that's why I'm withholding my support for them. It doesn't seem like you're doing the same thing, which is why I'm led to believe, okay, so you do support it, but then you're saying you don't. So, but you're boxing yourself in with them. So do you see where I'm struggling to understand where your position is? It's not me trying to force you in a box into I get you're Muslim, but you can still have a political position.
I just explained to you that James Fishback said a lot of the right things until he said deport Sneako, but he was saying what's correct. This is what we need. And so I platformed him. Thomas Massey is saying what's correct, and so I endorsed him. But that's a Republican. Are you a Republican? No. We need to put our energy where it's important, because if we keep on saying, I'm going to withhold my vote, it's literally going to be too late for this country. If you're being accurate and you're looking at what's happening, if you keep on sitting on the fence on every issue, it's going to be the destruction of our country.
So
and will not have help
I shouldn't fence it in 2028, is what you're saying?
I think you need to amplify people that are right about the most important issues. That simple.
So amplify a leftist who doesn't take AIPAC money but is in favor of aborting or abolishing ICE and all of these other things.
You just said that Abdul's better than Mike Rogers, right?
No, actually, I wouldn't vote for either of them. I said I'd withhold my vote for either of them.
Who's better?
They're both horrible.
Why are you afraid to answer?
They're both horrible. They're both horrible.
Who's better?
They're both trash. If I had to choose one, sure, Abdul. If I had to choose one, sure, Abdul.
Okay, so therefore you support. Okay, look, and now your logic would be because you support Abdul over Mike Rogers.
But I'm not going to endorse him. It's just that the bar is on the floor because the other guy's taking AIPAC money.
Dude,
okay. Go ahead.
By your logic, because you said that Abdul is better than Mike, you think that means now you need to support everybody in the DSA. No, it doesn't. Support people who are better than the other option. You don't need to automatically support the left now because you think Abdul is better. Just like you don't need to be a Democrat socialist to say that Mamdani's doing a great job. But you can acknowledge that this is the better of two options.
No, but it's really not. The bar is on the. I just explained to you in the very beginning when we were talking why I won't stoop to that low and vote for somebody just because they have one issue right. We went over this for the last 45 minutes. It's arguably it's arguably one of the important issues, but I don't even know if it's the most important at this point anymore because Israel's independent of the United States at this point.
Not completely.
The war in Iran cooked everything. The war in Iran cooked everything. And if that regime is to fall, the United States does not need to support Israel anymore. They won't even ask for our support anymore. So, I mean, I don't know. All I'm saying is I'm going to stay on.
I see what you're saying. Look, I understand Abdul said a lot of things that are dumb, but overall he did a good job. Okay. But I can understand.
He did not do it. He didn't answer one question.
He did a very good job.
He didn't answer one question.
He was getting heavily pressed. He basically said, let's focus on the most important thing, healthcare, right? Yeah, he was avoiding the questions. He was filibustering, but he's like, he was essentially following the tactic.
Okay,
instead
of everybody gets healthcare, then what?
And also he's not taking AIPAC money, and then other people follow suit. And then if politicians see the most popular politicians don't take AIPAC money, they will follow that trend.
That's
and
happening,
I understand
though. Yeah, that's happening. Go ahead.
Look, and I understand you keep saying like, I don't want to, I'm going to sit on the fence and I'm going to withhold and I'm not going to support anybody. It will get to the point right now, America's falling in such a quick free fall that if we keep on avoiding everything and withholding because of culture war, it will get to the point where the country's done and people that have important voices will have done nothing. So I'd be very wary of getting trapped into this because I don't know what it's going to take for somebody to win your vote. But we got to do something now fast because flock cameras are everywhere, data centers are everywhere, and we're still arguing about transgenderism. We got to get people in now, bro.
Okay, so what happens if a president or somebody who runs in 2028 says, oh, I'm not going to take AIPAC money, but I'm going to keep flock cameras going? You do realize that can happen as well too, right? So then where will your vote go?
The most important thing in the country is that Israel occupies all
so you think we'll have a country that looks, I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. You think we'll have a country that looks better if somebody who is similar to these DSA candidates wins the presidential election in 2028?
It's not just similar to DSA, it's similar to the rhetoric we hear from Tucker, from Massey, from Fishback. It's people that understand the bigger issues.
Yeah, but those people, Sneako, that will never win. You can never win saying that. You do realize we can do this whole like populist thing. The problem with Massey and the rest of them is they're not based in reality. They're not ideologically grounded. If they just keep saying no more Epstein and no more flock cameras, that sounds good. But if they're not talking about the legitimate issues that people care about, that a lot of these people on the left are very, very passionate about, like immigration and other problems, they're not going to earn the vote. They have to give their position on those things. So you're sitting here telling me, oh, we need to all unite and be united on the important things. But what I'm telling you is people find other things important as well that they have to give a position on. So it's all cute in the face of sounding good and looking like the hero. But when it comes to actual legislation, when it comes to their actual plans and stepping on a debate stage and talking about these sensitive topics that me and you are saying is culture slop, it's very quickly not going to become culture slop anymore. It's going to become real issues voters care about. So you have to be right on most of the things. Yeah,
you're helping incentivize and spread that division that is not necessary. And I think I'm not.
Hassan Piker is. I'm not. I'm not.
Okay, he also is.
I'm not even the worst. I'm not even the worst. Why are you blaming me for it when the DSA people called you a Nazi?
I'm not blaming you.
You just said you are incentivizing.
You're saying that it's pointless and that, it's got to be right versus left. I'm saying that there's a lot more people that are waking up from this than there ever were before. I saw this in the Anna Kasparian conversation with Candace Owens, where she's traditionally a Republican and Anna's traditionally a Democrat. And they both realize it's like, maybe these issues were fed to us by the same people in control of both. Maybe it's time to get out of this paradigm. More people are starting to understand this binary. And I'm encouraging that. That's the only solution right now.
Sure, bro. But now we're going in circles. But like I said, there's other things that people are going to inevitably care about. And inevitable is the key word. They're going to care about other things that distinguish the two parties, that distinguish two different ideas. That's the reality. We can all agree Epstein was sick. We can all agree we don't want flock cameras tracking us and reading our license plates. That's good. I agree with that. But that's just the tip of the iceberg, bro. That's not everything. You're making it everything, but to most Americans, that will never be everything.
And that's the point, bro, is that they follow these issues and they are fed these issues to keep them in classes so that they have the illusion of choice. That's why I'm saying this, is that it's an illusion. The transgenderism debate, where really nothing has changed, Trump or Biden, it's meant to keep you sidetracked arguing with.
It's not an illusion.
Meant to keep you sidetracked on non-issues so that you're arguing forever while flock cameras and data centers are outside your doorstep. That's what I'm saying.
It's not an illusion, though. There is a difference in what can happen in the country depending on who runs it. Because we have an Israeli president right now. Yeah, sure, the border is closed. That's great, but we're at war in Iran. And when Biden was president, maybe we didn't go to war in Iran. That was beyond the pale, but we had a wide open border. So there can be differences depending on who's the president. Now, this was where your point comes in. Resisting Israel plays a great role in diminishing the problems that we face with both parties. But you just told me, both parties are going to go for the same thing. So if you're saying that it's like this mirage or everybody's being blinded by something greater, what's the antidote to that? Should we make a different party? What are you trying to insinuate? Because there's going to have to be somebody who comes from either side, of course.
I think it's a new party. I think
that's impossible.
No longer being trapped in the right-left paradigm. I think it's more likely than before that I think a lot of people on both sides are starting to realize that. And we're being trapped if you think you need to have undying allegiance. But
yeah,
hey, take it easy. Nice talking to you.
Yellow, bro. Peace. Salam.
Salam.
All right. So long debate. He said hop on Discord. I already knew where that was going. Anyways, all right. So I'm going to close out. I'm all set here. I was really just going to finish up the Abdul Sayed video, so really not much to go over there. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed that. I'm sure some of you agree with me. Some of you agree with Sneako as usual. Let's see. I'll just read these chats really quick before I end. RD Daily says Sneako looks like a thumb that's been in water. Okay, very good. Thanks. John says, send Sneako my crash course on the Tiny Hats book. Okay, I can actually, John. Yes, thank you for that. I will. I'll show it to him. Inshallah. Thank you for that. RD Daily says, why are so many Muslim DSAs low-key anti-Muslim in ideology? I never met a Muslim that was left on any issue. I live next to Dearborn, by the way, Albania. Yeah, I mean, look, it's just like so many things that I already spoke about, so I'm not even going to give myself more of a headache. Sneako up at 12:30, just wanted to argue like, bro, go stroke your meat or something. Argue speech, not love speech. No, I mean, it was a discussion at first, but it inevitably always turns into a little bit of a debate. Teddy S says, current trade deal was signed by Trump 2018, Canada. Okay, thanks for that. Thanks for the 2. Okay. So yeah, that'll be really it. Yeah, what else was I going to talk about? I was going to go into the trade war, but I don't have time. You guys have a great rest of your night. Hopefully I'm back tomorrow with Myron. I'm really not sure if I will be, but I hope to be. But it's really going to depend on him. So we'll figure it out as we go. We always play it by ear. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Looking at the comments. Why'd he just leave like that? I don't know. He probably got... I mean, bro, it's frustrating. I really don't feel like talking about it ad nauseum either, but... Hey, it's okay. No attacking Sneako in the chat. No attacking Sneako in the chat. But all right, guys. That'll be it for today. And hopefully we're back tomorrow. We'll go over whatever comes up, if anything does happen to come up. But you guys have a great rest of your night, and God bless.